Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy there.
They got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughing him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
9 out of 10 judges prefer watching the Recovery Addict live stream in their courtroom.
The fireworks are not done.
Now we're getting commentary on the case. Dati mihi Anglican parade service luncheon.
Is that correct?
Literally not true.
I didn't ask you to interrupt me. Oh, for crumb's sake.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict. Big warm welcome to Jennifer Juniper as well. First in chat today, Jennifer, the internet is all yours. Stocking up on water for this afternoon. And got some deliveries. Nice. Didn't go to the post office yet. I need to do that still. I made myself a salad, and that took up all of lunchtime. All right. Congratulations, Jennifer. Fantastic win. Fantastic win. We have cables. And more cables. And lastly, we have more cables. Yay, it's like Christmas. This one I'm especially happy about. Let me show you this one real quickly, and then we're going to start court. Boring. Like boring. No. This is the good stuff. I ordered new headsets yesterday. Well, I got them yesterday. Look at this. Look. So this is like a headphone jack that you can plug in, and this is like dual XLR inputs. So XLR inputs, so I can get right and left balanced audio, and it's going to be great. I had the reverse version of this. I had like the headphone to XLR outputs, and now I have the other side. Not sure what these other ones are. What did I buy here? All these are coming up for the next gig. We're going to jump to court here in just a minute. We're going up to New Hampshire. And, of course, if we're in New Hampshire, it's got to be about snow. This is the same plug, but it's just stereo to mono. And what's this one then? Oh, this is quarter inch to XLR. Okay. I think I already had this one. I think I have 2 of these already. All right. That being said, welcome. Good to have you here. We're going to be jumping to court here in just a minute, and we're going to try to do what we can to make it as listenable as possible. And if I can find my remote, what's up here? Are you getting more excited over cables than the humidifier toilet? Mind blown. Yes, I love cables. I have so many cables. I have literally over 100 cables. Not just 100 feet I've got cables that are longer than 100 feet. So, all right, we're going to jump to court and hit the play button and bring you there. Just one second. Here we go. Starting with what began this morning in New Hampshire. This is Jason Levesque, or Levesque, charged with
Counsel, are we ready to bring the jury out?
his neighbor
All right, please bring out the jurors.
over a snowplow dispute. the microphone is being dragged around the courtroom by the bailiff or something. I don't know what's happening, but that is a terrible sound. Let's see if I
Please
can fix
rise,
that.
jury entrance.
Man bun equals guilty. Ah, you're right. You're right. Well, it saves us watching the trial, huh? Schmoopy. Just kidding. But was it snowing?
Please be seated.
Neighbor survived? I believe so. Attempted murder, not murder.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. Welcome back to Stratford County Superior Court. So, ladies and gentlemen, in a few minutes, we're going to begin the proceedings in this case by taking what's called a view. So we are going to go to a location in Rochester where the events that are involved in this case took place. Before we do that, let me explain a little bit about what a view is and what is expected of you during that view. The reason for a view is fairly straightforward. During the course of a trial, you're going to hear people talking about incidents which took place at a particular location. And the idea is that that testimony will make more sense to you if you first have an opportunity to see that location yourselves and get an idea of the layout and where things are located. So your obligation on the view is to look as carefully as you can and remember what you see as well as you can. There are a couple of important rules I have to tell you, however, first. First, you may not ask questions on the view. So you're not allowed to ask questions. If you do so, neither of the parties is permitted to answer your questions. Second, you're not allowed to take any notes or measurements while you're on the view. And third, you're not allowed to go back on your own later to that location to have a second look at it. Right. This is the only chance you'll get to see this location. You're not allowed to go back on your own and view it again.
We're just going to show you where it is.
And finally, and this is a very important rule, you're not allowed to talk amongst yourselves or with anyone else about what you see on the view, your impressions about the location, etc. This is a more specific instance of a general rule that I'm going to tell you later in my instructions, and you're going to hear me say this many times during this case. And that is that you're not to discuss the facts of this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else until the case is over, until you're back in the jury room deliberating at the end of this case. And that'll be after you've heard all the testimony and my instructions on the law. So you're not to have conversations amongst yourselves about the trial during the course of the trial. That can be a very hard instruction to follow because there's a natural instinct you're going to have when we take breaks to want to say, hey, how do you think it's going? Or what did you think of that witness? Or, ooh, what do you think about that? You're not allowed to do that. All right? So when you're on breaks or when you're on the bus coming back to the courthouse, talk about other things. Talk about the weather. Talk about the Celtics. Don't talk about the case. All right? All right, so what's going to happen? In a few minutes, you're all going to get loaded onto a bus, and we're going to travel together to that location. Once there, you're going to take a look around. The lawyers might point out particular things to you at the location that they want you to see. Pay careful attention. However, you are not limited to only look at the things that they point out to you. You're welcome to look at whatever you want to look at. Counsel, is there an issue? Do we need to just...
What's the problem now? What's the problem now? He's like, what did I say wrong? He's like, I didn't know it was going to be show and tell. I just thought we were just going to all look. I didn't know I had to have a prepared speech. Pointed out things. And he's like, well, you do. Okay, fine. I'll put it together. Sidebar number 1. Do we count sidebars? Whatever we have to count, we have to start counting it right now. This courtroom looks... It looks like it was not originally planned to be a courtroom. Does that make sense? Looks like it was possibly at one point the school cafeteria. Sidebars, says Mary Tedeschi. Sidebars. Should we count how many times they say plow? Yes, on the sidebar, says Emily. Okay. We could do sidebar counting.
This may sometimes happen in this trial. It's been pointed out to me that I've actually failed to do something I was supposed to do, and so I want to correct it right now while we do it.
Call the case?
Before we started all this, I was supposed to have you first sworn in as jurors. That's the first step in this process, where you become officially jurors by being sworn in. So I'm going to ask my clerk, Madam Clerk, will you please swear in the members of the jury?
Details.
Yes,
details.
we'll do that when we come back.
All right.
It's just a formality.
Will you please stand?
Formality.
And will you all please raise your right hand? Do you all solemnly swear or affirm that you will carefully consider the evidence and the law presented to you in this case, and that you will deliver a fair and true verdict as to the charges against the defendant? If so, please say I do. Thank you. You may all be seated.
Okay. So now technically you're now officially jurors on this case. I'm not going to reread all the instructions I just gave you. I'm going to trust that you can remember what I just told you. And some of those instructions you're going to hear again later anyway, so I'm not worried about that. But let me just finish up with what's going to happen in a few minutes. So as I said, we're going to get on the bus. We're going to travel to this location. Once we're there, you can take a look around. The lawyers may point out things to you they want you to pay close attention to, but you're not limited to only look at those things. And I will tell you this, an important thing to understand is what you see on the view is evidence in this case, just as much as any of the other evidence you're going to hear in this case. So that means that what you see on the view can be considered by you when the time comes to render your verdict at the end of this trial. So it's extremely important that you pay close attention to what you see on the view, that you observe, and you observe carefully. It is your view, so you can stay on the scene as long as you like, and you'll be given a full opportunity to see everything there and get a good perspective. I request of you all that when we're at the view, though, it would be helpful if you try to stay fairly close together. I don't want individuals wandering off on their own. Please don't spread out too much. Then if you do, you'd have a hard time hearing what's going on if the lawyers want to say something to you. So that's important. During the view, as we're traveling there to the view and back, we're going to be in the charge of the court officers and the sheriffs. If anyone should attempt to talk to you about this case during your time on the view, I want you to please notify a deputy sheriff or a court officer immediately. One last thing I want to mention to you, you probably already noticed, there is going to be media coverage of this trial. As you can see, there is a camera here in the courtroom recording this, and there may be live streaming, I'm told, of this trial. I want you to know several things about that. First, the media has been instructed, and I have every reason to think that they're professionals and will follow my instruction, that they are not to film you, members of this jury. So your images and likenesses will not be put out there in the public eye. Second, I'm instructing you, and this will also be part of my general instructions later, that you're not to view any media coverage about this case. So you're prohibited from going home and watching any of the live stream. If you come across articles or reports about this, you're to disregard those. And also, because of the media coverage, it just makes it more likely that members of your family or friends might approach you and want to talk to you about what they saw,
About the weather.
and ask you questions. I'm instructing you, you're not to engage in any of those conversations. All right? So if anyone approaches you and wants to talk to you about this trial because what they saw on the media, you're to not engage in those conversations, to immediately disengage.
I think it's Livernois.
Very good. Now, at this point, before we go and get on the bus, the attorneys are given an opportunity to give what's called a preview statement. A preview statement is simply a short statement given by the lawyer to assist you in understanding what they want you to observe at the view.
He's reading from his notes.
These preview statements are not the opening statements. Those will come later after we get back. And importantly, an important thing to remember is these preview statements, just like the opening statements you're going to hear later, are not themselves evidence. These are things that the lawyers are telling you they'd like you to pay attention to, but they're not themselves evidence. All right? So with that, we'll now turn to the preview statements. Attorney Barth, you may proceed.
Go ahead, Attorney Barf. You're up. Is it Barf?
Good morning. So it's been a week and a half, and maybe you've forgotten my crazy Swedish name. My name is Joachim Barth. It's Joachim. Together with my co-counsel, Sarah Dieloff, I'm presenting the evidence for the state, appearing on behalf of the state of New Hampshire. And over the next course of several days, we'll be presenting the evidence to support the charging documents. The view. First, where? We're going out to an address, a residential address, actually 2, in Rochester on Summer Street. These are adjacent addresses. Number 43 it has 2 units in it, and the victim, Kyle Violet, lived there. He lives there with his family, the details of which we'll talk about later. Immediately next door, separated by a driveway, is 41. And there, Jason Levesque lived there with his family. And we'll talk about more details of that later. That's where we're going. We're going to go out front. We're not going to go into either of those residences. We're going to go out front because that's where the events underlying these charges took place. A shooting in the street right out front of these residences. Why? Why are we going out there? The judge touched on some of these issues. Look, we expect probably 6 videos to be introduced. 6 videos that capture really significant events in this case. The part of a confrontation, literally the actual shooting itself. But here's the catch. These videos come from different angles. They integrate, they overlap, but literally, one is looking up the driveway from 41, one is looking down from the corner of 41, a porch view from 41, and a bay window view from 43, kind of at an angle. And so it's true that these videos overlap, they link together, they can form a cohesive picture, but the theory about going out on this view is, some people learn differently. Some people could look at these in sequence and it all comes together. The theory is other people are visual learners, and that going out there and seeing a panoramic that allows you then to integrate and overlap these videos more effectively will serve you and a clear understanding of the evidence best. And so when we go out there, we're primarily, from the state's perspective, going to be pointing out things like line of sight, distances, perspectives, that we hope will assist during the course of this trial when you receive other forms of evidence. What's the catch? The catch is this, the judge also alluded to this. You're going out there without the benefit of opening statements that give you an overview from both sides, two perspectives about the important issues and facts in this case. And so you're going out there a little disembodied from a coherent narrative. All I'll ask you to do is take, clear images in your mind and keep in mind that what you see out there is in fact evidence. And it's going to be evidence that we're going to ask you to draw from, to incorporate into the greater body of evidence in this case to return a guilty verdict at the end. So it's important. Again, we can't tell you the full story yet. We'll do that when we get back. So we've got that. Again, we can't answer your questions, but both sides are going to just point out issues and just ask you the importance of it. This is evidence. And see you out there and then back here afterwards. Thank you.
We're going to hear about what happens during opening statements. This is before opening statements. So hold tight. We're going to get this spelled out first. Just get the jury on their little field trip, then we can.
Good morning. Good seeing y'all. Sometimes we lose jurors over the week and a half, 10 days, and if you guys can count
on jury views,
know that we did. We did lose a juror this morning. So it's very important that you listen to the judge's
So stay on the bus, dang it. Don't get off the bus.
We can't afford to lose too many more jurors. Let me start by saying thank you again for your service so far. You're about to get into the meat of the case. And the meat of the case starts this morning. Meat of the case and the first reasonable doubts that are going to come to your mind are going to be developed this morning through this view. And I can't emphasize that enough. A lot of people, slight it off as some kind of a field trip. This is not a field trip. This is the real deal. This is just as important as any of the medical evidence that will come in during the course of this trial.
It's not evidence.
It's just as important or more important than testimony, even from some of the individuals that will be testifying. Okay. The prosecutor told you that these are adjacent homes. They are adjacent homes. He did define one of the individuals as being a victim. That will be up to you to determine whether he was a victim at the end of this case. I want you to understand that.
Spoiler alert, he got shot.
We take issue with that starting now. We take issue with that starting on the view. And I can't push that hard enough. You were asked if you could be open-minded and if you could decide this case without bias or prejudice. And the true test is about to begin. When we go out there, you're going to have to understand a couple things. Last April, there was a freak snowstorm. I don't know if you folks remember this. It was a wild, wet, terrible snowstorm. And it actually, I think, went on for, overnight even. It went on for a few hours, a lot of hours. And it accumulated a lot of snow. Now, there's been snow, but there's not been accumulation like that. There's been a lot of melting. Okay. So when we get out there, just try to envision the area snow-covered too, okay? One other thing, we're going out in the daylight. All right. This thing took place a little bit after 10 o'clock at night. All right, so keep that kind of a context going too. This is a nighttime situation. All right, so keep an eye around. Take a look at where we are. I have to emphasize with you that you're going to get some really good video captured on some Ring cameras and other things.
Not a sponsor.
That evening. It's actually going to be very helpful to you. And some of the video we were able to actually enhance. And by enhance, I mean blow it up, zero in on certain areas, so that you'll get an even better, look at what's going on. But it is important to draw the big picture this morning, the layouts. We'll fill in the blanks. It's our job to fill in the blanks. It's your job to get the outline. Okay, we'll plug it in as we go. But I got to tell you, I can't emphasize enough. How important this is. All right. I know you can't ask questions out there, and I know you may want to. And I got to tell you, we'd probably love to answer them, but there'll be a time and a place. And, we get to do openings, and we get to do examinations of witnesses, and hopefully we'll be able to fill in those blanks for you as we move through this trial. That's our job. Okay? Your job is to remain neutral. Your job is to remain open-minded. And you got to really turn it up as far as observation, because by the time you get to the deliberation room, okay, it's not going to be 1 day or 2 days from now. It's probably going to be into next week. So try to really lock down on this. And if you can, we'd really appreciate it. Jason's depending on you to stay open-minded and neutral. You got to do it. And we're going to get going on it right now. And the judge told you this. I can't emphasize it enough. This is your view. This isn't our view. This is your view. If you need time to look at something, that bus doesn't leave until you're done. Okay? This is where you guys are the boss now.
That said, get back on the bus.
And, you get to take over certain parts of the case. One of them is today. One's today. And one's going to be at the end of this trial. Deliberation room. When you decide the fate of Jason Levesque. So take advantage of those two opportunities, all right? And we're going to get out there. We'll point stuff out to you. It'll all make sense as we move through this thing. But I want to thank you again. Thanks for hanging in there. We got a while to go. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Sisti. All right. So at this point, I think we are ready to commence with the view. So I would ask the court officers to start that process, please.
Please rise.
All right, as everyone goes out on the bus, please note that the front seat is mine. The front seat is mine. You can sit anywhere else, but I don't share seats with anybody. So anywhere else in the bus, you're behind me. All right, so I guess the defendant doesn't get to go. Which is sort of funny because I think it's his house. they're going to his house and he can't be there. I don't know. Maybe he'll get to be there. They'll all get to go out and watch what happens. So we get to fast forward because that happened early this morning. So we fast forward. Many hours later, the jury comes back from the view, and we're going to pick up at that point. Is that all right? All right, let's do that. Oh, yeah. Beautiful seal. Not really. It looks clip art-ish. Does that make sense? It looks like somebody made that with clip art. Education, recreation, industry, and something else. I forgot what they say. It's a little cluttered. Straight out of the 1970s, Encyclopedia Britannica. Am I the driver? I'm driving this show. Can't be the bus driver who runs red lights. Occasionally. All right. Because this is so pertinent to the case, this happened out on the street. If somebody can give me the address of where this happened. I know it was 41 and 43. Was it Rochester Street? What's the full address? We might do our own little view on Google Earth, and maybe scroll around until we can get like some. Was it Summer Street in Rochester? Is that what it was, Greeners? Let me check that one. Are you making Summer Street? I think it's funny that if it's Summer Street because it was literally in the winter. Well, it's April, snowstorm. Okay, let's open in maps.
Please rise, jury enter. Please be seated.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so the next step of the process is the clerk is going to read the charges to you. These are called the indictments. These are simply the formal way in which the state accuses somebody of a crime. The indictments themselves are not evidence in this case. They are just the formal accusations of the charges. So, Madam Clerk, can you please read the indictments?
Members of the jury, in docket number 219-2024-CR273, charge ID number 2228154C, the state has charged the defendant Jason Levesque with attempted murder. Charging document alleges that on or about the 4th day of April 2024 at Rochester, the defendant did commit the crime of attempted murder, and that he did, with the purpose of the crime of homicide being committed, repeatedly shoot Kyle Violette with a 9mm pistol, which, under the circumstances as he believed them to be, constituted a substantial step toward the commission of the crime. In the same docket number, charge ID
the judges of the facts in this case, and it is going to be your job to decide the facts as they are presented during the course of the trial. You will be deciding what the truth is and what happened here based on your findings of the facts. You will then listen to the law that applies to this case, which I'll give to you at the end of the trial. And by putting those two things together, the facts and the law, you'll then go into the jury room and decide what your verdict will be. What you'll base your verdict on in this case is the evidence that's presented during the trial. And the evidence can come in a variety of forms. First, witnesses will testify during the trial. The attorneys will question them. The witnesses will provide answers to those questions, and what the witnesses say is evidence, and you can use that in reaching your verdict. Another form of evidence that you will see in this case will be exhibits. Oftentimes during a trial, things such as objects, documents, photographs, and in this case we've heard videotapes, are marked as exhibits. Those exhibits that are admitted into evidence go into the jury room with you at the end of the case, and you can consider those exhibits in reaching your verdict. And recall, as I also instructed you previously, what you saw on The View a few minutes ago is a form of evidence, and you can rely on that as well in reaching your verdict. The trial will begin, and probably right after we take the lunch break, with the opening statements by an attorney for each side. In a criminal case such as this, the state has the burden of proving their case by proving each element of the charges against the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt. And because they have the burden of proof, the state goes first. The defense will then give you their opening statement. An opening statement allows the attorney to tell you what they believe the evidence is going to be from the viewpoint of that attorney. And the important thing to remember about opening statements is that opening statements are not themselves evidence. You can use an opening statement to help you understand the evidence from that party's point of view, but what the attorneys tell you that the evidence is going to be, or what they think the evidence is not in and of itself evidence, and you can't base your verdict on it. In the end, if your recollection of the evidence turns out to be different from what the attorney tells you, then it is your recollection that controls. After opening statements are finished, the state's attorney, who sometimes gets referred to as the prosecutor, will begin presenting the state's case. He or she, depending on which attorney is going, will call witnesses to the stand and will question those witnesses. That's called direct examination. When the prosecuting attorney has finished questioning the witness, an attorney for the defendant's attorney will then be given the same opportunity to question the witness, and that's called cross-examination. And the case will proceed in that manner until the state has finished presenting all of its evidence. And at that point, the state will rest its case. When the state rests its case, the defendant may then present evidence in the same manner. But remember, the defendant is not required to, because in a criminal case, the burden of proof is always on the state. The defendant does not have to prove that he's innocent. Rather, the state has to prove that he's guilty and has to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So, the defendant doesn't have to present any evidence if he doesn't want to, but if he chooses to do so, that opportunity comes after the state has finished presenting its case. And then we will then proceed in the same manner with direct and cross-examination of each witness until the defendant has finished presenting all of his evidence. Now, during the trial, the lawyers may make objections. The lawyers are supposed to make objections when they believe that certain evidence is not admissible. If they do so, I will invite them up here to the bench to discuss the legal issue outside of your hearing. If I sustain an objection or exclude any evidence, you must not guess as to what that answer or evidence would have been, as it is not properly before you. In contrast, if I overrule an objection, meaning there's an objection but then I let the evidence in, you should not give any special weight to that evidence simply because there was an objection that was overruled. When the evidence is all concluded, we will then move to closing arguments. The defense will give you their closing argument first, followed by the state giving theirs. The closing arguments by the attorneys are essentially the opposite of the opening statements. In the opening statements, they're going to tell you what they believe the evidence will show, and in the closing arguments, they're likely going to tell you what they believe the evidence has shown and what its significance is. And again, closing arguments, like opening statements, are not themselves evidence. After the closing arguments are completed, I will then give you the instructions on the law. And then you'll know what the law is that applies to the case, and then you will go into the deliberation room to discuss and reach your verdict. I also make it a practice to give you a written copy of those instructions so you can have those during your deliberations. The day will normally start as it did today at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we will go normally until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We try to take a short break in the mid-morning of approximately 10 minutes, and then we take another break of at least an hour at around noon or 12:30 for the lunch break, and then we try to take a short mid-afternoon break as well between lunch and the end of the day. If for some reason you were to need an emergency break at some time other than when we're taking one, please draw the attention of me or a court officer, and we will do our best to accommodate you. I'd like to remind you of some of the important rules that you've heard about, and that some of which I've already told you about. As I told you previously, you should not discuss anything about this case until the end when you're in the jury room with your fellow jurors. So again, during breaks in the trial, you're not to talk about the evidence that you've heard or what you think about it. You should also not discuss this case with any of your friends or family members. And let me remind you, as I did previously, you're not to do any independent research about this case at any point during the course of this trial. That means no Facebook searches, no Twitter searches, no Google searches, no looking on MapQuest, none of that. And as I told you previously, you're not to go back and re-examine the scene on your own either. And all that's because you're required to base your verdict solely on the evidence that is presented to you in court during the course of the trial. Should you violate this rule, it could result in a mistrial and the need for a retrial. And it could also put you at risk for prosecution for contempt. And again, as I told you previously, I do anticipate there will be some media coverage of this case, and so if you happen to come across a story about this case in one form or another, you are not to read it or listen to it, and you're not to watch any part of the live stream or any of the videos that may get posted on the internet about this trial. As officers of the court, it is your duty to follow all of these rules and to report any fellow juror who you believe has violated them. These rules are important to the court, they're important to the state, and they're important to the defendant. And in fairness to all the parties, we need to be confident that your verdict will be based solely on the legally admissible evidence that's presented to you during the trial and not on any outside influence. It can be hard work to pay close attention and listen for extended periods of time, but it's important that you do so because there will be no transcript of the testimony available to you at the end of the trial. So you will need to use your collective memory of what the testimony is. So please, all of you, pay close attention to the testimony during the trial. And finally, please keep an open mind about the case, as things can change during the course of a trial. Don't lock yourself into any position until you've heard all of the evidence, the closing instructions, and the closing arguments and the instructions on the law. All right? And with that, that's the end of my initial instructions to you. I think this is an appropriate time that we take our lunch break since it's 12:03. We'll have an hour for lunch. We'll be back here at a little past 1, and then we'll start with opening statements. All right? Anything from the parties we need to discuss?
Thank you.
No? All right. The jury can be dismissed.
All right. As they go to lunch, we're going to catch up even further because they have an hour of that. And now we're going to be joining them for opening statements, which began just a couple moments ago. Wait for it. Wait for it. Let's see. I think it's the judge's desk that's... No. It's the microphones on the attorney's desks. They're terrible. There's no, vibration dampening.
So loud.
So loud. So loud.
Please rise, jury entering.
Got another package.
Please be seated.
All right, thank you, folks. Hope you all had an enjoyable lunch. Thank you for being on time coming back. We are ready to proceed with opening statements. State whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I got another cable.
Jason Levesque is guilty of attempted murder and first-degree assault. For firing 6 rounds of 9mm ammunition into Kyle Violette's body. This in response to Kyle warning, if you take Jason's term, a threat not to put snow in front of Kyle's driveway. That the defendant responded to Kyle's words with lethal, deadly violence, responded to a hollow threat over pettiness, a petty grievance with that kind of violence is the crime here. Let me be a little bit more specific about this criminal act. After Kyle said his words, even a threat, he stepped away. And the defendant brought out a firearm and pointed it at Kyle. Kyle could clearly see the firearm. There's no lighting issue, no lighting problem. The headlights of the vehicle were on, street lights were on, house lights were on. The weapon was clearly visible to Kyle, and he responded. He responded by turning away from the defendant, back towards his home. And as he turned away, from about 10, 15 feet away, the defendant fired. First round ripped through Kyle's jaw, his face, breaking both mandibles, lodging near his carotid artery.
Whoa!
And it caused him to immediately drop to the ground, facing away from the defendant, now facing towards his home. And after that first shot, it's about a 5-second pause, a delay, where the defendant advanced on him, walked towards him. Kyle is literally crawling on his hands and knees, on his belly, leaving a blood smear across the road diagonally towards his house. The defendant opened fire. 5 more shots into the back part of his body, into the side of his body as he jerked and twisted on the ground, crawling away, trying to get to safety. That's the criminal act. Each of those 6 bullets caused either maiming or potentially lethal or actually life-threatening injuries. Kyle Violette lived by sheer luck and the immediate intervention of some very sophisticated and effective medical care. First, from an officer who was highly trained in the military, responded within minutes and helped stem the bleeding. An EMT with heightened training, a paramedic, took over from there. 3 separate hospitals, Frisbee, then transferred to Portsmouth, then transferred to Boston for the intensive medical intervention that was required, is what saved Kyle's life.
This is why I don't shovel snow anymore.
Be clear about this. The evidence will show Kyle didn't die for his lack of trying, but because of medical intervention.
He tried to die? Kyle didn't die because of his lack of trying?
Let me talk
the
then,
defendant. Okay, got
just
it.
briefly summarize this issue. The evidence will show that no, there was absolutely nothing to justify what was nearly an execution in the street out in front of Kyle's home. That's because the defendant wasn't responding to a reasonable belief, reasonable evidence that Kyle was about to imminently use deadly force against him. And let me be clear, this proposition, this law will come from the judge, not me, and it's not merely legalese, some hyper-technical statement, we gotcha for this action. This is a principle, a guardrail that we all live by, that restrains violence in our community, in our state, and should have in this case. Retribution, getting angry about somebody's scary words, is not the same thing as self-defense. That is another guiding principle in this particular case. You're going to hear more specifically about these words. And these words are unsettling according to Jason. Jason has claimed that Kyle came out angry. Angry about where Kyle expected Jason to plow, push, deposit a pile of snow. And according to Jason, Kyle used offensive, threatening, and scary language. Bear with me, I'll quote Jason's claim. This, he claims, was verbatim. If you leave that fucking snow in front of my fucking driveway again, I'll fucking kill you and your family. That's what Jason claims he said. But in this fleeting, and I mean the confrontation that starts this is about 3 to 4 seconds of these words. In that confrontation, Kyle was never armed. He never appeared to be armed. He never brandished a weapon. He never hinted that he had a weapon or claimed that he had a weapon. There was no imminent threat of actual deadly force married to, even if you accept those horrible words. Those are the core issues. Those acts of coming up behind him, standing over him while he's on the ground, having shot him in the face, and putting 5 additional rounds into his body, in contrast to the facts about what he was actually facing. That's this case. And let me now, if I could, talk to you about some background and some more detail about how it is we got here. He just went out to their homes. They had been neighbors for about 1.5 years. As I mentioned, I think in the previous statement, that the Violettes lived at 43, the one as you face the houses to the left. Kyle, yes, the victim, lived there with his partner of some 22 years, Angela, and Kendra, who was 17 at the time. His daughter kind of split some time for educational reasons, and a son who need not be named here because he didn't witness anything. Next door, 41,
The son
the
who shall
Levesque.
not be named.
Jason's parents lived downstairs, and Jason lived with his daughter, Kira, 19 at the time, in the building, in the home to the right as you face it from the street. And we heard a little bit about this, that on April 4th of 2024, last year, we got a doozy, a snowstorm, some 18 inches, the heavy wet stuff. Big deal, right? Well, Jason was out plowing. It's one of the jobs he had. He plowed all day. He had essentially been plowing for about 24 hours, working for about 24 hours. And he stopped on the way home to pick up his daughter, who was working at a local pizza place, 9:30, 10 o'clock, to bring her home. And when he arrived home with Kira still in the vehicle in the passenger seat, he did a couple of runs in front of the house with his plow. He first went up the street, did a run across and removed some snow in front of his driveway, and then he turned around and did probably 3 or 4 runs towards Kyle's home, towards 43. And it created a pile of snow next to that telephone pole that was pointed out to you, all right? But while this was going on, while Jason was plowing, Kyle's looking out the window, that bay window that we pointed out, and he sees the plowing activity going on, and he sees the pile of snow by the pole, and he sees the defendant, Jason, stop his truck, which is an older style big rig plow, where in order to put it in 4-wheel drive, he's got to get out and manually turn the switch on the front wheels. And so there's this break in the plow. He knows, Kyle knows, that Jason is going to go down the driveway and back plow more snow out. And based on the last snowstorm, where he put it in front of his driveway and he had to deal with it, he was angry. He anticipated that Jason was going to push the whole pile because it had been set up and cleared in front of his driveway. And he was going to have to get out there and basically do it himself. And so he goes outside. We see this on video. Based on this prior incident where he had, in fact, asked him, hey, can you move this stuff? Here, according to Kira, his daughter, who was interviewed, her account of it was, yeah, they asked us to move it last time, but we didn't do it. After all, snow melts. And that didn't sit well with Kyle. So he goes out and to confront Jason about this situation. And here he goes. We can see him in the video, walking out rapidly, putting on a hoodie as he goes. You can see from there, he's not armed, other than being angry. You can see by maybe his pace, he's annoyed. And all of a sudden, because he's gone out, Angela and Kendall, the Violet daughter, look out that bay window too and watch much of this go down. And as Kyle walks out putting on his hoodie, he approaches Jason, who's at the truck. He's kneeled down by that hubcap, behind the plow, but just in front of his door. His daughter remains in the car, briefly steps out. And here's the thing, as Kyle approaches, his hands are out. And Jason admits, he can see his hands. He's not armed. And on the walk over, he makes no gesture like that he's packing anything.
Packing heat.
His hands are visible. And he approaches, and according to Jason, Kyle makes this claim. If you put that fucking snow on my property, I'm going to fucking kill you and your family. That exchange is face to face, right at the plow. You'll be able to see it from multiple angles. During that 3-second encounter, Kyle doesn't display a weapon, doesn't hint he has a weapon, doesn't claim he has a weapon. If you put that, I'm going to use this, that, or any other weapon to carry out this threat. It's words. After this 3 to 5 second exchange, time it, judge it for yourself, it's on video. Kyle walks away. He steps about 15 feet back. You can kind of assess that measurement because from the back driveway forward, just past that evergreen, you'll see Kyle still in view from the all the way back of the driveway of
Evergreen?
41.
Did I get the wrong address?
And so if you took kind of an eyeball measurement, it's about 15 feet from the corner of that fence to the angle of the evergreen. And that's about where he's standing. And you can see him in the video gesturing to the snow. That driveway, my driveway, and he's doing that kind of gesturing. The video, audio doesn't quite pick it up, but you know he's talking about snow not going over there. And at some point during this pointing and gesturing, he stops and walks back towards his house, kind of pacing. He's certainly agitated. But he then takes a turn back. He walks probably 4 steps back towards Jason, still kind of gesturing. Still, no weapons visible, nothing to suggest he was armed, that he obtained a weapon, that he was holding a weapon, that he claimed he had a weapon. And as he walks back, he reaches a distance of approximately 15 feet away from Jason. And it's at this point that Jason steps away from his truck and forward, closes the distance to him slightly, and raises his firearm and points it out. He brandishes it. And guess what? It did what you would hope it would do. Kyle stops. You can clearly see that right at the edge of that pine tree. You can see him emerge and then step back. And it's at this point, there's a pause between brandishing the firearm because there's sufficient distance that nothing happens. Not long, but enough to see Kyle stop and turn away. He has been warned. He's received the warning, and he's responded appropriately. He's turned away. But from this two-hand stance, despite Kyle stopping, despite him turning back to his home, Jason Levesque fires. I told you, it strikes him in the face, penetrates from the left to the right, smashing through his jaw, his teeth, lodging next to his carotid artery. He goes down. And you'll have a sense of where he goes down, not from the videos, but from body cam of police officers showing up. You'll be able to see in various sweeps of body cam the blood distribution on the ground, where it starts, just the other side of that white line, and it drags diagonally towards Kyle's home. Kyle's clearly on the ground now. Obviously incapacitated. He's not getting up, he's not bum. He's on the ground now with a very serious injury.
It's not what?
The hemorrhaging is going into his throat. Later has to be cleared by EMTs. They have to literally turn his body on its side to drain his throat. And yet, the collection of videos will show that despite this situation, Jason advances, takes multiple steps towards him. As he's on the ground, he's beginning to crawl on his belly, his hands and knees. You can see these videos where he unloads 5 more rounds. All of them striking his body.
Wow.
Kyle is able to crawl, I don't know, 10 more feet, right about at that pole. on the sidewalk. So he's come off the road at an angle, and he basically curls up. And I told you that Kendra and Angela were watching from Violet's window. They obviously, when they see the first shot, they start rushing out, and they meet him as he on the ground, and everybody starts calling 911. I mean, Angela, Kendra, other neighbors who have heard these rounds go off. And I don't know if you noticed how close this address on Summer Street is to Rochester PD. We'll hear testimony about it if you didn't, but it's just around the corner. And Rochester PD responds with multiple units in minutes. They get there. And here's where the paths from this event, for Kyle, Violet, and Jason Levesque, deviate. You've heard about this awful intersection. Now they split. And here's what happens with Kyle. He is launched on the path of a medical odyssey that hasn't ended. And I want to be clear about this. You will see evidence, graphic evidence of these injuries. You'll see body cam images of treatment. You'll see photos from the hospital, and you'll hear detailed accounts. And I want to assure you that the reason is not shock and awe to offend you, to provoke you to reach a certain verdict, to trigger your passions. It's this. This medical evidence is relevant to show, to prove his deadly intent. The repetition, the location, the nature of a 9mm bullet ripping through somebody's body is relevant to show intent to kill. That's why it's coming in, and it will come in. And so let me just foreshadow this. You will see and hear from a guy named Sergeant Hurley, Williams Hurley, who's a combat medic overseas and has some real specialized training in triaging on the street. He'll do his thing. He cuts Kyle's clothes off. He is identifying gunshot wounds and doing compression bandages to stem the flow. He's the one who realizes he's literally choking on his blood and tips him over to drain his throat. He's the one who takes over on the scene. And the next person who arrives is this EMT, an actual paramedic, also with prior military and intensive training in acute trauma and triage. And she makes the decision, this guy needs to leave and leave now. Hurley says if things didn't happen quickly, this man is going to die. And so they take him from the scene rapidly in a ambulance to the closest facility, a community hospital. Perhaps most of you are familiar with Frisbee Memorial. And there a guy named Dr. Freeze starts to perform medical services as well. And he does a quick assessment of these gunshot wounds. They do some things there, primarily pumping in enormous amounts of blood. But they quickly reach the conclusion that these are life-threatening injuries, that there are diffuse bullet fragments through the body, that there are injuries, candidly, that they're not capable or confident about addressing. So they immediately, or very quickly, emergency evacuate him to our community higher level of care facility, which is Portsmouth. At Portsmouth, another doctor takes over, and in similar fashion, they assess, they do a surgery. I told you about some of these injuries, the bullet going through his face, breaking his jaws, but also landing near and dissecting part of his carotid artery. That he's shot, I told you, from behind. 2 wounds are literally in his buttocks, his back, that go through and penetrate partially his pelvic area, and also one is suspected of rupturing his bowel. So they do kind of this emergency surgery at Portsmouth. Look, it's graphic, but one of the bullet literally just obliterates his left testicle. It causes serious hemorrhaging. They have to do surgery, remove it, and stem the bleeding. They do that at Portsmouth, but they quickly conclude that if he doesn't get more emergent care, he'll likely die there. So they medevac him to Boston, and you will hear the summary. I don't want to belabor these issues. I point them out to show the seriousness, not just of injury, but intent. And so you're going to hear more about the injury to the clavicle, to the abdomen, to the enormous amount of bleeding and damage that was done internally. And that's for you to assess, not just the criminal acts, the criminal intent in this case. That's pretty much Kyle's journey. He's in the hospital down in Boston for about a month, discharged to home in the condition he was, which you'll hear about. Jason, at the same time that I told you people were literally descending on Kyle's prone body to save his life, there's another part of the reaction from the police, not surprisingly, that focuses on Jason. So let's go back to that scene right after the shooting. He finishes up with 5 rounds into Jason's essentially back and side as he's twisting. And then he takes a gun and he walks away, walks back to his truck. You're going to hear evidence about Jason's path. It's a different path. It's one he takes where he attempts to evade accountability, escape responsibility by recasting Kyle's actions to sound like he engaged in imminent, deadly behavior, that he created an imminent threat to his life. But you're going to hear evidence in more detail in this regard. Let me first share with you that Kyle returns to his, Jason returns to his truck, which is still parked out in the street, the edge of the sidewalk. And his daughter's has returned, has gone. She was only briefly outside when this whole thing happened. She got back in the truck, understandably, and witnessed much of this. And she'll tell you that when Jason got back into the truck, he turns to her and says, "Should I run now?" He turns to his 19-year-old and says, "Should I run?" Not like, I defended myself, did what I had to do. It's, should I run? His daughter, his 19-year-old, turns to him and says, "No." He says, "Well, what should I do?" She says, "This is your path. I don't know. Should I call 911? I don't know what you should do." And so he pulls into, doesn't call 911, pulls into the driveway and waits. He certainly doesn't have to wait long. Sirens have been going on now. Lights are on. It's around the corner. And the police come in and they do take him into custody. And he cooperates, seemingly, physically, sure. He puts the gun in the car. He steps out. He seems polite and cooperative. But here's what happens next. A guy named Detective Garston and Flathers take him back to Rochester PD. They take him up to an interview room. And they don't know what's going on yet. You know, when they first get on the scene, they don't even know who the shooter is or who's injured. They didn't see Kyle initially. He's over by that pole. That's how kind of uninformed they are, and so they bring him back and just kind of say, "Well, tell us, what happened?" And he describes much of what we've already talked about. He says that, look, I'm plowing, I'm minding my own business, I'm in front of my home, and I'm with my daughter, and out comes my neighbor, and he, while I'm doing the four-wheel drive thing, he comes up and nose to nose, and he repeats this. He's very clear on this, that the threat is conditional. Hey, if you move this over there, I'm going to fucking kill you. There's no doubt that this was conditional, and those are the words that were said, no doubt that they were unsettling and grossly inappropriate. But what he also told the police is, yeah, no, I didn't see a weapon. I didn't take out a weapon, and he didn't claim to have a weapon. But this is what he claims next. That Kyle turned away after that and walked back to his house. But then for whatever reason, he turned back and he looked really angry. He looked like he was going to come and fight me, had his fists on it. Just the look in his eye, I knew he was going to attack me. Then he says, that's why I pulled the gun out. Okay, fair. By the way, legal. Well, what happened after you pulled the gun out? Did you go towards him? No, I never closed the distance. Well, what did he do? This is what he claimed. He quickened his pace. Kyle, once he saw the gun, started rushing at me. He quickened his pace. And I could tell in his eyes it was you or me. I could tell he was going to come over and like take the gun. He was more aggressive. He was going to hurt me. He was going to take the gun. That's what he claimed to the police. This is after he pointed the gun at Kyle. That's the claim. And he continued to come at me in such an aggressive fashion that then I had to fire the gun. And he admits to shooting Jason. He said, I hit him. And after I fired the gun, Jason says, I turn around back towards my truck. But I look back and Kyle, despite being hit, he's not even phased. Hasn't flinched. He's now continuing after me again, and I feel frightened. I feel like he's going to attack me because he's still on his feet. Shot didn't seem to stop or hurt him. Might have flinched because of the noise. That's why I fired the rest of the shots, he says. I fired the shots into his lower body as he approached me, and only then did he turn and start walking towards his house, holding his abdomen, situation diffused, self-defense manifest.
Tell a good story.
Here's the problem. Well, he's making that statement to the police about Kyle bum rushing him despite having a gun out, continuing to take an assaultive stance and attitude after being shot in the face. There's an investigation going on. The rest of the Rochester PD is back down at the scene, assessing evidence. You can see the crawling smear of blood, not standing, not walking, and more importantly, they get surveillance tape. They get surveillance tape in the middle of this interview with Jason. And somewhere in the middle of this interview, detectives Garston and Flathers are actually informed. They take a break and they go out. And what do they see? They see one of the videos from 43 that catches it. They also police have also obtained the driveway video from 41 that goes from the back, that shed out. They obtained the video from the corner, high corner down into the driveway. They obtained the video from the porch, and they obtained the video from 43. Pretty much a panorama. They also obtained a video from 38 down the street that just captures audio, that 5-second pause between shot 1 and 2. But here's the deal. None of these videos are perfect, but together with the scene and the interlocking nature of it, here's what you can absolutely see is that Kyle comes out, just as Jason says, and they're nose to nose for a very brief period of time, a couple of seconds. You can't hear this audio of their account, which is notable because it captures, for instance, the discharge of a firearm. So whatever's being said isn't being said at such a volume that the audio can pick it up. And yet you see Kyle walk away after this nose-to-nose encounter, gesturing at the snow And he walks further towards his house, and he turns and takes several steps back, and then Jason steps away from his vehicle with a firearm and advances 1-2 steps towards Kyle. He pulls the gun, and what do you see? You see him charging towards him, continuing to, attack an armed man now? No. You see Kyle stop cold in his tracks. There is a pause. Tick-tock. Nobody moves. Kyle then moves and clearly turns away, back towards his house, and that is when you can see in one video a muzzle flash and hear the firearm and see Kyle go to the ground. The brandishing worked. It's visible in the video.
He's repeating himself.
The first shot fully incapacitates him. He drops to the ground. He's on his side. He takes additional shots. You can see the defendant advance towards him some 3, 4, 5 steps, aim over him from behind into his back, his buttocks, his testicle, his abdomen, his shoulder, all shot. He never got up, never advanced as Jason claimed to police. And so the injuries are what I described them to be. The videos show something very, very different than what Jason claimed to the police to create circumstances that would justify this kind of behavior. The defense has taken these videos and they've sort of put them together in what they term as an enhancement. I'm going to ask you to carefully look at each one of these videos as they're introduced into evidence, and when you have an opportunity back there to really take a look at even shadow movements confirming that he stopped and turned. The tree, seeing just him coming forward and then turning and stepping back. These reference points all come together to show that this shooting was absolutely unnecessary and wholly unjustified. And so now we reach a different point in this path. They intersect again. Kyle and Jason's paths intersect here. And it may sound corny, but this intersection is called justice. The direction
Justice
you take forward on this path, because it's now primarily your path to take, will be determined by the evidence, the law, and your common sense. You apply these principles, these values, and to not just the expectations, but the requirements on the street of how we deal with threats, with words. We'll ask you at the end of this case to find that this shooting was attempted murder and a horrible assault that was criminal. Further ask that you not let this process confuse the notion of violent and deadly retribution, reaction with self-defense. Speaking angry words, without the deadly means to actually cause imminent deadly force are two different things. Brandishing the firearm in this case worked, stopped him for all these reasons. We're going to come back at the end of this case and ask you to apply those three principles: the law, the evidence, and your common sense, and return verdicts, just verdicts, guilty.
Thank you, counsel. Attorney Sisti? You may.
Approach. Oh, now we have to go back to the sidebar counter.
Thank you.
Sidebar counter is only at 2. I'm going to do this. Do I take it back down to 2? Right back on 2. Gut feel so far? I have to say, just from someone who has taken a lot of firearm training.
If you need to, but I'd like to make it short because I want to keep on track. So
When a victim gets shot in the back,
here to resume with the defense open. Okay? Thank you all. Can the jury please be let out?
So the jury's going to leave for a second. Let me just say, when a victim gets shot in the back, it's very hard to claim self-defense. I think that opening was also partly closing. There was some argument in there.
Very good. The counsel always yelled around you the same way.
No, I appreciate it.
If you need it, we'll let the time. Thank you.
All right, and off to break they go. So we're going to skip ahead and be all the way caught up here in just a moment. We're like 10 seconds behind now. This is great. Zoom.
For the on record. All right, we're ready to be the jury bench. Very good. Over 131, bring in, please.
You'll bring the jury. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit. There we go.
Whenever you're ready, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Lots of zooming today.
I got a few things to say. That business aside. Let me say that was quite an opening. Interesting. Barely touches on what took place on April 4th, 2024. It touches it. Let me start by saying just a few things, okay? Let me lay it down here for you in a very basic, common sense, everybody knows fashion. You know, there's a saying that goes around, it goes around in New Hampshire quite a bit. You don't mess with a mama bear's cubs. You ever hear that? It's bad news if you do that. Let me tell you something else you don't do. You don't mess with a father's daughter's life. You don't threaten a father's daughter's life. You don't
like this?
threaten a son's elderly parents.
Or like this.
And you don't threaten
One or two?
Jason.
One?
And even Kyle
Or two.
should have known that. And you know what? He did know that. But what was Kyle? What was Kyle? Kyle was a man who had a heart that was full of hate. He had a brain that was bathed in rage. And he had a mouth that was spewing venom on the evening of April 4th, 2024.
Sounds like we need to change the
And to
counterback.
sugarcoat what went on that evening, a little after 10 o'clock p.m., and say it was a petty, conditional threat is the understatement of this decade. What
was the last
happened
decade?
that night, ladies and gentlemen, I will give you some background. I will tell you what happened that night. And you will understand why somebody like Jason, protecting himself, his daughter, and his family, was pushed into a position where he reasonably believed that serious bodily injury or death was about to take place. And when that happens in this state, folks, the judge is going to tell you, you get to use deadly force. And that's exactly what Jason did. Kyle got what he deserved. And any reasonable human being that acted like Kyle should have expected to get the same. Should have expected to get the same. And anybody in the position that Jason Levesque was in can certainly utilize deadly force. You do not, ladies and gentlemen, have to stand back and wait for a screwdriver to get stuck inside you, or a sucker punch to the throat, or who knows what's in his pocket, to decide that you're going to use a firearm. That's not the rule. Never has been in this state, never will be. You know, we all reasonably believe that we know what's going on in the cool, quiet confines, hours or days or months away from an event. But this happened in seconds. This happened quickly. This happened where you don't get to roll it over in your mind. This happened where you don't get to frisk his pants and see if he has something in it, or his jacket. This happens, and it happened that night, when a raging maniac, out of nowhere and for no good reason, was threatening the life of Jason and his family. Now that's the context that we're talking about. Not some petty, conditional threat. We're talking about a death threat. And when you reasonably believe that somebody is talking serious to you, you get to react serious. And that's the law. That is the law. Whether it be 1 bullet, 6 bullets, or 20 bullets, you get to utilize them. I'll give you a little aside, by the way. Kyle wasn't straight with the police. Kyle wasn't straight with the police. The police and the prosecution have been hoodwinked by him. He didn't tell them, hey, I angrily confronted Jason Levesque. Objection.
There's another sidebar. We're up to 3 there. I'm getting ready to use the skeleton. He's just getting in position. We might. Oh, there was a hand. We might have to use him to describe some of the injuries. I figure we'll use a little screwdriver since I'm currently sans my barbecue skewers. If you could just hold that in your mouth, that would be great. Okay, so he's gonna hang on to that for later. New Hampshire's state slogan: "Live free or die." Defense going straight with the die part. So we're going to focus on that. It's a wild day. You don't have to wait to get stabbed in the back with a screwdriver or sucker punched in the throat, says the defense. Don't you have to check and wonder what's in their pockets? What does he have in his pockets? No, you can just shoot. Die, apparently. So that's where we're going in this case. It is the Wild West. It is the Wild West. I'm confused about the screwdriver. He said apparently maybe the defendant thought he was going to be stabbed in the back with a screwdriver while he was working on his 4-wheel drive truck, trying to lock in the hubs so he could shove some snow into his neighbor's driveway, which he does every snowstorm apparently, and the neighbor was going to get physical over it. So, is the so-called raging maniac in the courtroom today? I don't know. Being a victim, I'm not sure if Marcy's law applies here if you don't die, which he didn't. Not for lack of trying, according to the state. 6 shots is with a 9mm. Each one of those could be fatal in and of itself. But why did Jason have a gun in the first place? It's his right. New Hampshire, live free or die. He was he had the gun because he was doing the live free part, right? The live free is, live your life, do your thing. And then he engaged the other part of the saying. Katie Russin, he makes me chuckle. I don't know why. I don't know why. All right, I need to get rid of this. I left the pinned statement up there a little too long. Sorry about that. Katie, thank you very much for the super chat. That's, I think, your second one today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Been shot 6 times and survived. Yeah. I've been shot a couple times, all with BB guns, never with a firearm, thankfully. But the BB guns were not I was not like committing a crime and being stopped. We were just having a BB gun war with our friends, because that's what you do. We have constitutional carry here, says Courtroom Door. Yes, constitutional carry means that you don't need a permit from the government to carry a firearm with you. Of course, a lot of states have different rules about where you can then carry that firearm. Usually federal facilities are off limits, like post offices and oftentimes courthouses and police stations, and in some states, schools. But constitutional carry means the Constitution of the state says you can, in fact, carry a concealed weapon. If you got shot above the belly button, you had to go to the firing squad. Capital punishment, first offense. Wow. New rules. I haven't played by those rules. We said don't shoot him in the face. Okay, but the number of times you had to squeeze a BB out from just below your eye because it broke the skin that's residing in your face. It happens. It happens, okay? All right. Get the impression the defendant had a criminal background. We're going to hear a little bit about criminal backgrounds, I think, in this case. We'll keep the F-bomb counter on the screen, which we're currently up at 6. I think it's going to be higher. I think defense wants to focus on that. So we'll probably count a few more here during his statement, and then just know that the other counter is at 3, the sidebar counter. Been shot with a paintball gun? Yes, me too. I've had many a bruise from one of those. Cheryl says, yes, my neighbor shot me beneath my eye with a BB gun when I was young. That's what we do. That's what a BB gun is literally for.
You heard what the prosecutor said about Jason and what he heard? You heard a lot more. Okay. You heard a lot more. Okay.
Crank the volume here.
Didn't say that he was going to fucking kill Jason's family. I want you at the end of this case to see who was straight and who wasn't straight. Okay? That's for you folks to judge. And you're going to judge the night of April 4th, 2024 on the videos and on the testimony. But let me tell you about that night. Let me tell you about the 24 hours before this took place. The 24 hours before this took place, Jason Levesque was working hard.
He's our defendant. Jason's defendant.
24 hours in a row. Plowing snow, hitting all of his accounts in Rochester, over and over again. It was a continuous snowstorm, cycling through and clearing all night long. All night long. And all day long. Working hard. The last thing he ever wanted to do was have a confrontation with an enraged maniac coming out of his house. And you're going to see the video. It's not some calm guy strolling over to Jason Levesque saying, please, don't put snow on my driveway. That's not what you're going to see. You're going to see Jason Levesque finally getting home after 24 hours. Finally trying to get inside the house with the daughter that he's raised. Finally trying to get inside the house where his elderly parents lived, and by the way, where his 5-year-old nephew was that night, so they could finally get some sleep after working for 24 hours. You're gonna see Jason Levesque get out of his truck after making a couple of moves with the plow. And this is kind of important, like real important, because you're gonna see the driveway, Kyle's driveway, unmolested by Jason. Jason didn't dump one flake of snow on Kyle's driveway. Not one. Nothing. You're gonna see Kyle quickly moving out of his apartment, his residence, and be the initial aggressor in this entire scenario. He wanted nothing to do with him, and he didn't even see him coming. Jason's minding his own business. Jason's there with his daughter. Jason's there with his daughter that was also working that night. Jason's trying to get his daughter safely back into the house, when an enraged individual, unannounced for no reason, comes right up to Jason. And folks, the description of face-to-face doesn't even get close. Kyle literally, when you see this video, Kyle literally sticks his nose right into the cheek of Jason.
Yuck.
And we contend as he's doing that, as he is having actual physical contact, you say face to face, how about face on face that he initiated?
Yeah, that's too close. That's too close.
Is threatening his life, threatening his daughter's life, threatening his family's life. He doesn't even know why. Jason hasn't done anything. And you're gonna see that he hasn't done anything. The one thing on that video that is crystal clear is that Jason's done nothing. Nothing. Nothing to even deserve a "I'm going to fucking kill your family," like the prosecutor said. Not even that. But quite frankly, you'd interpret it, and any reasonable person would interpret, that Kyle was out of his mind. That he was acting beyond stupid. That you couldn't predict what he was going to do. Because the initial act itself was unpredictable.
Beyond Stupid's a good band name.
It was without reason. There's no foundation for what he was doing. Screaming and threatening when Jason did nothing. Nothing. Nothing worthy of a complaint. But instead of a complaint, a death threat. That's what you're getting. That's what starts all this. But it just doesn't end. Now, is it a quick event? Yeah, it's a quick event. Is it a violent event? Of course it's a violent event. That's what we're doing here. Who started it? I'm going to ask you at the end of this case. Who was the initial aggressor? Who threatened the life of another individual? Who could reasonably believe that the threat could have been actually executed, carried out, where serious bodily injury could have taken place, or death? Can you come to the conclusion that deadly force was utilized reasonably? Yes. But the interesting question and the legal question that's going to be placed before you is that can the prosecution eliminate self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt? That means, can you, after placing yourself or somebody in the position that Jason was in, eliminate beyond a reasonable doubt the need for deadly force?
Is somebody like idling a big truck outside the
I'm going to ask you
courtroom?
at the end of this case to answer that question. And I'm going to ask you to say, no way did they disprove beyond a reasonable doubt that self-defense should not have been utilized. You know, nobody wants to be in that position that Jason was in. Nobody wants to be in a position where you have to use lethal force. Nobody. But you do get pushed up against the wall sometimes. And that's what happened in Rochester last year. And when he got up in the morning on the 23rd of October and was called into work to go over and over and over and plow for hour after hour after hour, he never ever expected anything like that tirade that took place that evening. It's inexcusable. Was Kyle shot? Was he shot multiple times? Were there heroic medical procedures that were pursued? Yes, there were. That's not the case. That's not the prosecution's main point. I'll give you a little aside that maybe you didn't hear on open. If Jason wanted to kill him, he could have that night. Little fun fact for you. He had another magazine with him. He could have just popped it in the 9mm and emptied that too.
That's not helping your client, sir.
He didn't want anything to do with it. He didn't try to escape. He stayed right there in the driveway of his own home, waiting for the police to arrive. No attempt to evade at all. That's a fact. And you're going to find that fact. We don't have to sit around and imagine evasion of the police, or attempting to escape, because it never happened. Waited for the police, took the firearm, kept it inside the truck. When he saw the police, he got out of the truck, cooperated 100% with them. Told them where the firearm was, went to the police station. Evading the police. I mean, I would argue that he was still in shock, but he sure wasn't evading the police. That's a heck of a lot of 15 seconds of activity that he just went through. Evading the police, he went to the police station.
It's hard to evade them there.
The police. Did he lawyer up? Did he say, I'm not going to talk to you, I want a lawyer? No. Did he go through a long discussion with him? Yeah. And let me give you another little side fact. He offered his video film from his cameras to the police. Yeah. This guy, the video film we're talking about, he offered it to the police. It wasn't some grand investigation going on. And he spoke to him. And he told him he was threatened. And he told him that his family was threatened. And he told him that he shot Kyle. He told him all those things. And was he scared? Yep. And was it Kyle's intent to scare the hell out of him? Yep. And did Kyle succeed in doing that? Yep. And did Kyle succeed in convincing him that he was in danger? Yep.
Did Kyle
I'm going
find
to
out?
ask you to imagine at the end of this case, going home after a long day's work, and out of nowhere, having somebody confront you, screaming and enraged, and threatening your family out of nowhere. And I'm going to ask you at the end of this case, just how long your blood pressure and your heart rate would be elevated after that. And what was going on in your head after that. And how you would react after that. Because that's what it comes down to. Because the true test, when we get down to self-defense, has to do with reasonableness. And it's an interesting instruction you're going to get. And I'll give you some of that. The judge is going to give it all. Did Jason actually believe that the other person was about to use unlawful, deadly force against him? Now let me just stop there. If somebody says they're going to kill you and kill your family, you can come to that conclusion. Did he actually believe? Did he actually believe that he was in danger of death or serious bodily injury? Roll that over. There's some interesting aspects of self-defense. And it can't be analyzed, like I said, in some Spartan lab after the fact. It has to be analyzed as if you're living through the same events as the individual that is asserting the self-defense. So you got to live in the shoes of Jason Levesque. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those. Cooperated with the police. And yeah, his path was different than a medical path. There's no question. His path is one of defending himself in the court of law and forcing the prosecution to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And he has no burden. We all know that. He doesn't have to produce anything. We know that. But as we move through the case, you'll see things will be produced on the part of Jason Levesque. Now the videos, they're not going to tell the whole story. I'm afraid we don't have a beginning to the end. And I'm afraid that you don't have audio, because I wish you did. If you had audio, I would assert you would have heard multiple threats from Kyle against Jason. That he turned back more than once and threatened to kill him and his daughter. If you had audio, that would have been a really great gift for you. You would have understood it even better. But you can just imagine and reasonably come to the conclusion that Kyle didn't just turn around and walk back to his house and tuck himself in for the evening. He just couldn't give up on Jason. He'd walk back, turn around, he'd shout out some more threats. Turn around, walk back, shout out some more threats. Taunting, threatening, continuously. That's what Jason was here. It wasn't a good night. It was a terrible night. Terrible night for both of us, sir. Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in some of this stuff. I understand the magical medical procedures. Understand the life-threatening wounds. Understand all of that. That goes with this turf. But in the end, the bottom line is going to have to be this. As the prosecution disproved self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. And as you go through this trial, I'm going to ask you to filter that, all the facts through that legal principle. Filter it. And ask yourself, if and when Kyle takes the stand, do you trust him?
Ooh, the victim's going to
Do you
testify.
trust him?
That'll be spicy.
Is he giving you the full story? Or is he giving you the petty little argument that was referred to in opening? Pay particular attention to all of the circumstances in this case, because if you do, at the end of this case, you will come to the ultimate conclusion. You will come to the ultimate conclusion that Jason Levesque acted in self-defense. That a reasonable person in his position would have perceived that he was in danger of death or serious bodily injury. So again, thank you for sitting in on this. You're going to see graphic images. You're going to see medical stuff. You're going to see all kinds of stuff in this case. But please keep an open mind. I'm begging you. Because if you keep an open mind, you're going to give us a just result. The just result in this case is going to be not guilty. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, counsel. I'd like to approach your honor. Yes, please.
Sidebar number 4. I think I got 2 good naps. And the car just drove away. It's been sitting out there idling, and then it drives away at the end of this. What are they doing? The soothing vroom, 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 and now it drives away. Oh. Did Kyle die? No, he did not. He lived. Got shot six times and lived. He's going to possibly testify here in this court. Josh brings the charges, says Jason Levesque, 44 years old, charged with attempted second-degree murder, second-degree assault, and reckless conduct. He's been in custody since his arrest on April of 2024. So nearly a year in custody for this one. No snow plowing for the last year. 6 times. Yeah, 6 times seems a lot, right? When you're talking about self-defense. It's a lot. It's a ton. It's more times, arguably it's more times than is needed. It's Kyle there. They haven't shown him, but they talk about him possibly testifying in trial. Sound like an electric fan. Kyle testified at the bail hearing. He's in a wheelchair now. Twice in the butt, once in the jaw, once in the groin. Oh. Lucky it's been a mild winter this year. For those that missed it, I did get one more package in the mail. Just dropped it. Now I need another. I was like a monkey and I picked it up with my toes. So we got an XLR stereo to a single XLR. We got XLR, that was an 1/8" modular too.
2 things, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to instruct you, as I told you previously, at the end of this case, I'm going to instruct you on what the law is and what the legal standards are. That will include a full instruction from the court on what constitutes self-defense and what that legal standard is exactly. So while both counsel presented to you arguments about what they anticipate and what they believe the court will issue for an instruction, I advise you that at the end of this case, you will get a full instruction from the court as to what self-defense is, and you're to rely upon my instructions as to what the law of self-defense is. That's for the court to do, not for the parties to understand that. Second is, even though we just took a break a little while ago, we're going to take another short recess, just to give you a chance to stretch your legs and so we can set up some technology. So we're going to take a hopefully 5 to 10 minute recess, and we'll be back on track after. All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
Plenty of breaks in this courtroom. Plenty of breaks. Anyone who has a smoking addiction they haven't quite kicked yet should be fine. Judge is yelling at the defendant in the other trial, I don't know how to mark and send to you. Is it... Let's see. Let me go over here. You're talking about our fun one that we had earlier, right? The 2-for-1 trial. Let's see what's happening 2-for-1 for just a minute. Ready?
Don't move. That did not start with that.
Okay, so why don't you play whatever it starts with that? What that?
Sorry.
The jury's out.
So that would be the computer we have to put it on then?
Yes.
Okay.
Where is it?
Right here.
So you don't want me to use the admitted?
Well, what? First of all, you identify that. I don't know what that is.
Because once I see it on the
Well,
screen.
you exhibits. You can offer exhibits. Just identify them.
Okay, but number. If you would insert it.
The same file.
Yeah, it's still terrible, but
That's got nothing to do with the hash.
Correct.
okay, we'll go back to that maybe if it's good. So how is that one still going on? I don't know. The judge is probably livid. I was telling you what I got for cables. We've got a 1/4-inch stereo to XLR male. That's one. We got an 1/8-inch stereo to XLR female. That's 2. We got a 1/4-inch stereo to 1/8-inch stereo. This is just adapter. Basically goes from headphone jack to a professional size plug, larger one. And then we got a 1/8-inch stereo to dual XLR females. That's awesome. It's awesome. We're behind. Oh, sorry. Oops. My bad. My bad. Sorry, shaky ground. Karen says, what is the F for? What's the F for? I don't know. I couldn't figure it out myself. So we're going to go back to court here in just a second here and continue as they set up all the equipment. There's an earthquake in New Hampshire right now, apparently. I've got a box of cables and zero clue about any of them. I have a ton of cables. I love them. The other thing I got right here, I needed, I'm miking a choir at this event. There's a children's choir that's going to be singing. I'm thinking it's about 30 people, 30 singers, 30 voices. I'm going to mic them with 2 Shure SM58 microphones, but I needed the clamps. So I've got the stands. I just need the clamps to hold the microphone. And they're narrow body mics because they're wired, not wireless. I have the clamps for wireless, so I needed to get those as well. So, what in the clip art is the seal, says Allison? Yes, that's what I was saying. It is. It's a little bit terrible. Agriculture, education, recreation, and industry. It's a fun note. This is New Hampshire. Fun note, on the recreation side, they have the firearm. That's where the gun is. The gun is on the recreation side. Sailboats, guns, and ice skates, apparently, are what you do in New Hampshire for fun. Industry. Okay, it's got like some calipers, a hammer, and some pliers. Then agriculture. I know we've got corn. What's that next to the corn? Those aren't peaches, are they? Apples? Is New Hampshire an apple state? Seal is aggressive. Boats, guns, and ice skating. The three just rattle off the tongue. It's like, hey, what do you do for fun? Well, sailboat, ice skate, and of course guns. Are they tomatoes? They are tomatoes? Seriously? New Hampshire's a tomato state. Lynn says we have apples. Lots of farms here. Yes, many apples. Have an orchard here in New Hampshire, says Colleen. There's hunting and fishing. Oh, is fishing on there? Oh, you're right. There's a fishing pole underneath the gun. They dropped the fishing pole, picked up the gun. It's an apple state. Definitely not cranberries. It's a tomato because it has green stems. What? Does an apple? If you pick an apple and it has the leaf on it, it's still got it looks like that. Guess it could be tomatoes. Someone took the live free or die motto too seriously. I love it personally. I love the motto. It's basically New Hampshire not being one of the largest states by land mass, obviously, just asserting their rights is like, hey, we do our own thing here, right? We are our own people. This is just the county seal. You're right. This is the seal of not the Great Seal. It's just the seal of Strafford County. What's New Hampshire's seal look like? Fun fact, Hey Lou says the state fruit is pumpkin and veggie is white potato. Sam says if I was drawing this, I'd make my apples have brown stems. Love the hexagon in the center. Oh, I think that's a nut. That's a nut because the whole thing is like a gear. But look at that date, 1771. You know what it says to me when I see 1771? That says metal detect here is what it says. Metal detect here because you're going to find silver, you're going to find gold, you're going to find treasure. I go there for Costco and bigger ticket items, no sales tax. Whoa, you can go to New Hampshire and not pay sales tax? Do you have to pay it when you cross the border? Is there like a tax station you have to report? Yep and nope, side by side. I have land. I try to metal detect. Colleen, I love it. Love it, love it. Tax free. All right, shopping for houses without Mrs. R.A. Here's how I fixed the problem. I shopped for this. Well, we shopped together, and then I bought this house without her input much at all. But from now on, if we're doing any house shopping, we use the same account on Zillow. So if I see something I like, I put a little star on it, little favorite, and then she can see it on her iPad. So then if she does not approve, she can just unfavorite it, and then it's gone forever. Because you can never find something twice on the internet. It's always random when you find something online. So Tennessee doesn't have state sales tax either. I love no income tax. Tell you, with it being tax time right now, I'd love to have no income tax. What happened to the other trial? The audio is terrible. It's still hanging out there, but it's
3 minutes and 51 seconds.
Well, now it's good, but only because we checked on it.
I have the call for you.
It's not the same one.
It is. It's 3 minutes and 51 seconds. It's the one we talked about on the phone.
If you could. Let me just hear the first 10 seconds of it.
Okay.
I'll be chill.
He's arguing.
That's not it. That's definitely not it. It's been muffled at the beginning right before that word.
All right. Yes, we are caught up in the other trial. We're waiting. Do you want to pause the New Hampshire trial and finish up the this one?
Get there, but I don't know what your end goal is. Where are we headed?
The door was forced open. No one mentioned detained. Came in, started beating
You
him.
removed the resisting arrest count. You being detained is not, it's immaterial to your charges. It does not matter. So we don't have to worry about that.
And called me a fucking.
I agree. I'd love the jury to hear it too, but you can't even tell me where it is. At what minute mark is it?
That's not even the same sample as the. I'd rather just move forward.
Fine.
Whatever it's going to be, it's going to be.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to help you get that in.
All right, bring him in, Bob.
The judge can hear that. Standby counsel is extremely frustrated, wishing she did not have to stand by.
Can you please read?
I have to cut away from that just a little bit because the jury gets shown on the screen. They stick their head above the pixelation a little bit. I feel bad for this lawyer. She's like, I went to law school to be a lawyer, and I'm writing shotgun to a pro se defendant who refuses to listen to me.
Okay, be seated, please. All right, Mr. Jordan has decided not to call the sergeant. So, Mr. Jordan, do you have any other further witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
And does the defense rest at this point? Do you rest, Mr. Jordan?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the defense has rested.
He's on
That
his
means
phone.
that you have heard all the evidence that you're going to hear in this case. The next step in this case is going to be the instructions of law and closing arguments of counsel. However, we've got some things that we have to do that are going to take a little bit of time, so I'm going to release you for today.
Oh, good. They come back
Be back here tomorrow, and we'll start. Be back here at 8:15. We'll get started with the next phase of the trial. Okay. And remember, don't discuss this case with anybody. Don't look for any other information, and don't come to any conclusion until the deliberations begin. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good evening.
All right, so
All right.
bring your book back here in your
So they're gonna go for the day, and we're gonna come back and wait for. Oh, it's just perfect timing. Look at this.
Okay. We think that's going to work okay? In terms of the television?
I believe so, Your Honor. It may just require some coordination between you and the witness, because we both of you will be standing
Oh,
back here.
right.
Trying to recognize it, test it, they're able to see it from all spots that they're sitting in.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
if you're comfortable with this?
How soon into the first witness's testimony do we anticipate the videos coming in?
About 10.
Okay. All right, so I'll probably start out, I'm going to start out up here, and when you get to the video part, I'll probably move.
The problem though is that we're obstructed, and I finally asked the court if we can move the issues. Because
You're obstructed from seeing the jurors, you mean?
the jurors is in us.
Since we know where it's going to go, I mean, we can dial it back until.
And then pull it forward when it's time to play
That's
it.
okay.
Is there enough cord to do that?
Yeah.
I think that would be the smart thing to do. We could pull it back for now, if there's enough cord, and then when you actually go to play it, we'll pull it forward, and everyone can then move. When you're moving the TV, we'll all move.
You know, I said that with some confidence, but I really have no idea.
I can do it, Your Honor.
Don't let them touch it.
I can do it.
You did say that very boldly.
Yeah.
She ran over the court twice.
Okay.
That's good. That's fine.
And so what, we're the,
All right, very good. Ready to bring the jury in? Good. Very good. Let's proceed. Over to one, everyone.
So they've turned on the microphones at the two council tables again, which are the microphones are sitting on the desk, and the desks act like a platform boundary mic where it picks up anything that touches the desk. So every time they write a note, they move a paper, a shuffle, they bump it, we hear it. I'm gonna need you to cancel your meeting, Michelle. Just kidding. Just kidding. Go to your meeting.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're about ready to start. Counsel, you ready to call your next witness? I am. Or your first witness, I guess I should say more correctly.
You are ready, aren't you?
Your Honor, the state calls Kendra Violet.
Okay.
Kendra, is that the mom or the daughter? I told you it's not a courtroom. We're actually in an airport lounge. Those are the seats over by the... If you look out the window, you should be able to see the planes. This explains all the noise now.
Come on down this way, ma'am.
They just brought in some temporary furniture and put some boards up on the wall and a cheap little logo.
Just remain standing for a moment. Raise your right hand. Swear that any testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the penalties of perjury. All right. You should be seated right there. Do me a favor, kind of scoot forward so you're close to the microphone and try to put your voice up so everybody can hear you. Counsel, when you're ready, you can inquire.
Appreciate it. Can you state your name and spell your name for the court reporter,
Yes.
please?
I'm Kendra Violet, and it's Kyndra.
And would you mind spelling your last
Yes,
name for her as well?
Violette.
Just like the flowers, but with extra T's and E's on the end.
Where do you live right now?
I live at 277.
We don't need to know her full address.
Is there another address that you call home as well?
Yes, 43 Summer Street on the...
And that's the one where the thing happened.
Tell me a little bit about that. You said you lived at a specific address with your grandmother. What town is that in?
It's in Farmington. I go there because I've proceeded school there ever since I was in 4th grade, and we've lived with her for like 5 years.
In order to facilitate your education in the school?
Yes.
She gets around the school
You met there
boundary issue
friends
that
in
way.
the Farmington school system?
Yes.
No teachers in that school system as well?
Yes.
At some point while you were living in Farmington, were you living up there also with your parents?
Yes.
And can you just tell us, if it's not obvious, who are your parents?
My parents are Angie LaChance and Kyle Violet.
And so was there a time when Angela and Kyle moved to that address in Rochester that you just talked about?
Yes.
And in order not to switch schools, you stayed with your grandma?
Yes.
And can I ask who else do you live with? Who else is in your family?
The only other person I live with is my brother.
Okay. And does he also do the same
He does,
gig
yes.
back and forth?
Yes.
All right. You mentioned you're doing this because of school.
Yes.
Are you still in school?
I am, yes.
What grade are you?
I'm a senior.
What age does that put you at?
I'm 18, so 12th grade.
Okay. How do you like school?
I love school. I have all A's and B's right now.
Nice. What do you love about it? What kinds of things do you study?
Probably just the education and friends.
And do you have any kind of plan? It sounds like you're graduating this year.
I do. I started early college classes for social working, and I'm going to continue that in the summer as well.
Is that the social work
Yes.
education, is that local? Are you still going to be around?
Yes, I am. It's through Great Bay Community College.
Understood.
Yes.
That's awesome. Hope she does well.
If I could move attention and focus attention to the address in Rochester. It's 43 Summer Street?
Yes, it is.
Can you describe for us a little bit about the interior? You know, we went out there, took a look at the place from outside. We didn't go in. Can you just kind of give us a rough breakdown of how people are situated living in there?
Are you talking about like the living or like the layout of the house?
Let's start with living, and I'd like to do it from the time frame of April of last year.
Okay. So like what happened that day?
No, just before we get there, kind of fill in who lived there and where the rooming situation
Yeah,
was.
of course. So in that house at that time, it was my other grandmother living in the front studio. And then there was a split house, and it was me, my mom, my dad, and my brother in there. And during that time, we all have different rooms upstairs. Downstairs is like the living room, just where everybody hangs out, but upstairs is where our rooms are.
And I don't want to bring up more sensitive issues for you, but I understand your grandmother who lived in the front unit has since passed away.
Yes.
Okay. And so, but at the time, when your grandmother lived out front, you on the weekends and other times would live and have a room at 43.
Yes.
Where was that room? Upstairs?
My room was upstairs. It was in the middle of my brother's and my parents' room.
And then let's again go back to April or last year. In addition to going to school and going back and forth, were you doing anything else? Were you working, for instance?
Yes, I have been working at Portsmouth Gaslight. It's a restaurant.
It's a restaurant?
Yes.
What do you do there?
I serve right now, but I used to host.
Anybody else work there that you know?
My mother.
What does she do there?
She bartends.
All right. And do you guys go in together?
Yes, we do.
What are your usual hours at the Gaslight when you're working?
Usually after school, it's like 4:30 to 9. Usually I do like 5 days a week. Have 2 days off.
All right. And I do now want to, I just don't want to, intrude unnecessarily into your life, so let's keep this focused. I want to talk about April 4th of last year. What was going on earlier in the day for you, if you recall?
I went to school that day, I believe. I had school, it was a Thursday, and I went to my parents' house because we didn't have school on Friday, nor the weekend, so it was like a longer vacation for us to be over there. So it was like 3, we just got out of school. We went home, I didn't have work that day, so we all kind of just hung out in our rooms. I believe we were going to watch a movie later on in the night, but we ended up not. We just made dinner instead.
And remember anything about the weather?
I don't. It was it was cold. It was snowing.
Yep. Did that snow affect your, now recalling that it was snowing, did that affect your school schedule at all? Do you know?
I don't recall. I do not.
Okay. And so it sounds like you have a memory of the evening,
Yes.
plans with your family,
Yes.
watch a movie, dinner.
Yes.
Tell me about what you were doing later in the evening.
I ate dinner and I went up to my room and I was gonna watch my own movie, and I watched some TikToks on my phone, and my parents were in their room at the time and my brother was in his room. I believe he was sleeping. It was already like 8 or 9 at the time.
Tell us what happened later that is obviously unusual.
Yeah, I was laying in my bed and my mom came in my room and she was just like, "Your dad's going to talk to the neighbor about plowing snow in the driveway." And I was like, "Okay," and we both walked downstairs. We were messing around in the living room talking to each other, and I ended up looking out the window to see if anything was going on, and I saw my dad walking home to walk away, but I didn't see the prior situation of him going out there. I think when I was going down the stairs, he was about to go outside. So I just saw when he was walking away and when Jason pulled the gun out.
You saw the gun come up?
Yes.
Kendra, do you know whether or not your home, your parents utilized a home surveillance system?
Yes.
You said you were looking out a window to see some of these events. Can you describe that window for us if we were looking from the exterior of the building?
Yes, it's the window outside from our porch. It's like the huge window where you can see like the road and you can see some of the neighbors' houses across the street and the one across from us.
And that's the window you were looking out from?
Yes.
Is that also a window that utilizes a home security system?
It is, yes.
I feel like I interrupted you, and I don't want to necessarily have you talk or relive this, but can you describe to me again, I didn't quite follow what you saw when you looked out the window.
Yeah, when I looked out the window, I saw a truck open, the door open, and I saw Jason Levesque standing out of it. And I saw my dad walking to the house. He was just walking back on the side of the street, on the side of the road. And I saw Jason Levesque just pull the gun out. And that's when I yelled to my mom, he has a gun. And at the time, all I could do was just run out the door. So I ran out the door, and that's when my dad was already on the ground. And I looked at Jason and I said, you shot my dad like 3 times. He didn't say anything.
Do you need just a second? I want to ask you some more questions.
Of course.
You said you saw a truck.
Yes.
Can you describe generally where you saw that truck?
It was parked on the side of the street. It was more on his side of the property, Jason Levesque, but it was also kind of hitting in the middle of ours. So it was kind of in between of his steps, but also in the middle of entrancing our driveway.
You said you kind of have a memory of some of these events, the actions, the moments, and then going out to see your dad.
Yes.
Can you describe your father when you went out outside of your home?
He was laying there. He was laying on the ground. He was just like curled up in a ball.
And how did he appear to you?
Hurt.
How?
He was just bleeding everywhere. And he didn't say anything. And I was just holding it. And then I went to go get towels in the house because I didn't know what to do.
Did anybody else come outside?
My mom.
Your
She
mother?
came out after, yes.
Your mother, Angela?
Yes.
And while your mother was outside, is that when you went to get towels?
That is, yes.
And then what did you do? What other actions, if any, did you take?
My mom was outside yelling, call the cops, when I brought the towels back out. And I believe she was already on the phone with them, but that's when I started to dial 911 as well.
Did you complete that call to 911?
I did, yes.
And share with me what happens after both you and your mother call 911.
I stayed on the call because the officer wanted me to stay on the call until the ambulance and the other police got there. So they came, I would probably say at least 2 minutes after the call.
And during that time, from when you came out and the 2 minutes, did your dad move, change locations?
No, he was just facing the snowbank and just curled up in a ball still.
On the ground?
Yes.
And you said that the police arrived some 2 minutes later
Yes.
by your estimate. Can you just briefly describe for us what happens next?
Yeah, my dad was laying there and that's when one of the cops came up and they took off his shirt, ripped it off, and the ambulance were putting him on one of those chairs to put him in the ambulance.
Did you observe for a period of time officers and the EMTs attempting to treat your dad?
No, not much afterwards.
And then after you were outside, can you tell us what other contact you may have had with police officers or law enforcement investigating this?
I don't think I had contact other than when one cop came in my house to ask, like, questions about what happened and asked if we had camera footage and all that.
Do you know whether or not you viewed or officers viewed the footage and whether that was turned over to?
Yes, it was turned over that night. My mother handed over my dad's phone.
Some of the events that you have described, do you believe they were captured on the video, the home surveillance system?
I do.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would like to reorient and perhaps Attorney Sisti and Mr. Levesque would like to reorient. If we could have a few minutes. I'll say that this is the bane of my existence. We'll move it forward, and if the court can inquire whether there are any issues with the view of it, we'll try and accommodate it. Could you give us a minute?
This is us reoriented. Oh, stop, don't go. Oh, yeah, it's too far. It's too far. If we zoom in, it's all going to be squished. Maybe one of these other monitors will have it on this. Judge says, hey, jury, can I sit with you guys for now?
Yes. With the court's permission, I'm going to ask that the witness step into the well, Your Honor.
That's fine.
Thank you.
You ready to do that now?
I am.
Can all jurors see the television while you sit it?
Your Honor, we'll pause it at the first image and reconfirm.
Do you need the lights to do anything, or is it bright enough with the...
Oh, sorry, Mike. I can bring the mic back.
No, the lights. We're going to need to dim the lights eventually? Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with that.
Okay. Kendra, can I ask you to step down with the judge's permission away from the witness stand?
Staff members of the jury, can you all, down the end, can you all see that? Very good.
And it's possible, it's best if you kind of move forward into the well but not block jurors. And I am showing you, Your Honor, this has been pre-marked for identification as states number 2.
Thank you.
Kendra, you described your view outside a window that's consistent with surveillance video from your home. Do you recognize this image? And can you explain for the record what you are seeing?
I'm seeing the same thing as
And is this, inquire with the court or the court reporter whether or not the witness needs a mic? Yes, Mike?
Keep your voice up, man. This thing picked up like each
I'm going to move this and try and keep my voice up.
Here, you can use mine. I wasn't using it.
I think you just identified this as that bay window in your house that's adjacent to the porch from outside if you were looking at the house. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And is this then not only consistent with the view, but with what you understand to be the surveillance video from your home?
Yes, that is the only one I have seen.
I'm going to ask co-counsel, if we could proceed.
Well, at this point, Your Honor, let me just it's for ID, and I don't mind us being stricken all the way. I want this as a full exhibit.
Agreed.
So is it agreed this is now a full exhibit? Yes?
It's a full exhibit.
Very good. This will be marked as State's Exhibit 2 as a full exhibit.
Could we play?
You're allowed to play it, yes.
Okay, here we go. We're going to zoom in on the sideways screen.
Fast forward.
Start at the beginning, please.
Start at the very beginning.
Thank you for that.
So it's not, we can't not see, we just can't see very well. There's... Is that the snowplow? Stopping right there. He
You recognize that vehicle that just came into view from right to left?
I do, yes.
What is that vehicle?
I believe that is Jason's truck.
Can you identify the house on the far side of this driveway in the foreground?
Yes, I can.
So is that?
That is Jason's house.
At 41?
Yes.
See the plow lights up there. So he's moving his truck forward right to the edge of the driveway. Remember, we're looking out of that little window from the split level house on number 43, looking out towards the neighbors, the front of the neighbor's house. Looks like the altercation has begun. Her dad is out there.
Is this lighting consistent with what you recall?
Yes.
They're out there having a conversation currently, maybe? Maybe that was him that walked around the front of the truck. I'm not sure.
And you recognize that as the same vehicle?
I do.
I think he's still moving the truck a little bit. He's not locking the hubs yet. So Dad's not outside yet. Defendant's still in the truck, sort of in front of his house, but pulling almost up to the driveway of number 43. That's when we see the lights on the truck again. Come the lights again. Truck's pulling forward. And it backs up again. Looks like he's pushing the snow right up to the point of where the driveway is. Another car goes by. Opposite direction. It helps if you lean far to your, well, this way. You can see better. Truck comes up again, right to that same point, and backs up. I've never seen such a precision movement by a snowplow before. Usually it's just, get her done. But he's very precisely pulling forward and then stopping at that specific point. He's pulled forward a little further this time. And back again. Maybe he's trying to engage his four-wheel drive and it's not engaging.
Yeah, can you pause right there? You had said that earlier that you were able to see essentially Jason get out of his truck. Are you able to identify his door opening in this image?
I do not. But when I was watching further to the right-hand side of the window, so I was seeing the very.
Can you play?
Wait for the truck to pull forward again. Okay, this is Dad. Dad's headed out.
And who is this who just left, apparently, your home?
Dad.
And now in the left-hand image, and it may require you to move forward, are you able to identify Mr. Levesque in the far left next to the porch?
I was not out at that time, so no.
Okay. You said you were able to see him from the window.
Yes.
Can we keep playing?
Yep, there he goes. I don't know, he's all the way up there. You better not do anything stupid.
Don't do anything stupid.
Oh, you better not do anything fucking dumb.
There's
No, he's getting drunk. He hasn't got out of the cell. Ah! He just shot him! He just shot him! Hey!
Can you rewind that to...
Oh, wow. Pop, 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 pop was the timing of the 5 follow-up shots, about that fast.
Right. Were you able to see, Kendra, your dad and Jason in the far image when you were inside?
When I was watching that.
Yeah.
I was.
Okay. And whose voice is that in the, I guess, background or the overlay of this video?
My mom.
Was fair to say your mom was also with you watching out this window?
She was not watching. She was just in the living room.
Okay. And can we advance it forward again?
Play. He's walking back to the driveway.
What's that? Yeah. Back from when they were at the truck, though.
Bailiff gives tissues.
You better not do anything stupid. Oh, you better not do anything fucking dumb. No, he's getting drunk. He hasn't got out of the cell. Ah! He just shot him! He just shot him! Hey!
Now she's running out.
Can you identify who that is?
She's me.
And now?
My mom.
Is this when you came back into the home to get the towels?
I need a police. Call 911.
And are you in fact calling 911 at this time? Okay. Your Honor, I believe by agreement the ID is struck and this is now moved as a full exhibit in evidence.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
So we're done showing this at this point? Can we all go back where we are, or is there more testimony?
We can. I am good.
Good. Thank you. Go back.
I'd like it available for cross-examination.
It'll be available.
Bring the lights back up.
Aziz, lights. Wow. I didn't realize it was going to capture the audio. I did not hear the first shot, probably because she was yelling that they had a gun. I could definitely hear the following 5 footage. Where's our defendant? Oh, it's over there.
If I may, Your Honor. If I may.
Yes.
So you had testified earlier that the police arrived in short order. What happened to your dad afterwards?
He got taken to Frisbee Hospital, I believe.
And what did you do?
I actually stayed at home when my mom went to go see my dad.
Okay.
Yes.
And I assume your brother was at home.
Yes.
The audio and videos
Your brother.
out of sync.
Is that parts of that video a fair representation of what you saw and experienced that night?
No, I believe it's correct.
Thank you. I could have a moment there.
Okay, give me just a second to see if I can.
Thank you. Attorney Sisti has some questions. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hold on just one second.
Thank you.
Hold a second. I need to see if we can get this synced up again because it's not working.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hi, Sisti. How are you?
I'm okay.
Thank you.
Everybody calls me that. Hey, let me ask you something, okay?
Can't sync it.
We never met before.
Yes.
Okay. But that was horrific to watch, right?
Yes.
I mean, seeing your dad get shots is got to be about the most terrible thing.
Yes, it is.
Especially, I mean, a daughter and a father.
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah. I mean, you're dedicated to him, right?
I love him, yes.
And he loves you like crazy, right?
Like crazy, yes.
Right. And it's kind of a special bond, right?
Yes.
You were talking, you were calling Jason, but prior to the 4th of April, you didn't really know Jason, right?
I didn't know him too much, no.
No, I mean, there wasn't any real connection there between your family and his family, right?
No, not much, no.
Right. I mean, you live next door.
Yes.
He never bothered you, right?
No, I have not had contact with him ever.
Audio and video is just out of sync, so it is what it is.
Let me ask you something straight up, okay? On that particular day, the 4th of April, at that particular time, there was a voice that the jury heard on that video, and it wasn't yours, was it?
What voice was it, sir?
Yeah, it would have said, "I hope he doesn't do anything stupid." Did you recall hearing that?
I did, but that was not my voice, no.
No. Do you know whose voice that was?
That was my mother.
All right. And again, I'm going to say this, and I don't want to offend you with words,
okay.
But there was also a comment that was, "I hope he doesn't do anything fucking dumb."
Yeah.
And who would that have been?
Who would that be towards?
Yeah.
I do not know.
This was after your father left the house?
This was, yes.
Okay. And you saw the video.
I did.
It's absolutely terrible, I'm sure, for you to see. I may have to ask you to see it again. Is that okay?
That is all right.
Okay. All right. But I'm going to ask you a few things about it, and then I think I'm going to ask that it be played again, just so everybody understands what's going on here, okay?
That is okay.
Okay. We're looking out the window, and it does show your driveway, right?
Yes, it does.
And the driveway is not plowed in any way, shape, or form, right?
No, it is not. We were going to have my friend's dad come plow it.
Right.
Yes.
And the Department of Public Works in Rochester had plowed that day.
Yes.
And you could see where they plowed because there was a ridge of snow at the end of your driveway.
Yes.
Okay. And that was there prior to Jason and the truck ever showing up, right?
Yes, we did have snow.
Yes.
a great deal of snow.
Yes, we did.
Okay. And as you're watching that particular video, would it be fair to say you couldn't hear what was going on outside, right?
Yes, of course.
You don't know what your father said to Jason?
I do not know.
You don't know what Jason, if anything, would have said to your father, right?
You are right.
Hey, let me ask you something else. Did you ever meet Jason's daughter?
I have never.
Never.
No.
The audio's a few
So
seconds
what we
ahead.
saw in the video, and I'm probably going to have it rubbed up again. I hate to do this to you, if you understand. I really do. Okay. But what we saw was that your driveway wasn't plowed, and we saw Jason operating his plow truck out in the road, right?
Yes.
And there's that telephone pole, light pole, that's pretty visible in that video.
Yes, sir.
And you may not know this, but the jury went out with us this morning to that scene so we could all see it together.
Okay.
So now we're all talking about the same thing.
Of course.
And we know that that telephone pole, light pole, is on the other side of your driveway, the Levesque side of the driveway. Right?
It is. It's on the end of our driveway, yes.
Right. And we saw the plow truck plowing snow, and it only went up to the telephone pole, correct?
It did go a little past the telephone.
It wasn't blocking your driveway.
No, it wasn't, no.
And then what we see, did you actually see Jason get out of the truck?
I did not. I just saw them outside of the car together.
All right. So you saw your father approaching Jason, right?
No, I saw when my dad was walking away from Jason.
Okay, so you never even saw the initial contact.
No, I was upstairs in my room.
So you don't know how any of that started at all that evening, right?
I do not know. I just know it was obviously over snow.
Yeah, well, something was going on.
Yes.
And obviously there was a shooting at the end of it, right?
Yes.
But you don't know what started it, right?
I do not know.
And you don't know how it got to the point where a firearm was used, right?
No, I do not, sir.
I'm going to, just for clarification, just so we make sure we know where the positions are and what took place, I'm going to ask to have that re-shown if I could. Thank you. I may ask you a couple questions as it's going, so you may want to take.
That is totally okay.
Okay, thank you.
Get back.
And we can run it to the spot, or a little before the spot where you ended it. I just need the graphics up to that spot.
A little better angle here, a tiny bit.
We got to go all the way back.
I apologize. To the beginning or to?
To the beginning.
Beginning, or do you want the?
No, beginning. The beginning's good. Okay, it takes a little time before we get to the action here. So, and again, this is your driveway, right? And it's unplowed. And it doesn't look like much action there. Some little tire tracks, but nothing out to the road, right? Okay. Not a lot of coming and going that day. Here we go. This would have been Jason's truck.
Here we go. Here we go. We're going to watch your dad get shot again. That's a little heartless, the way he's presenting this.
Can the jurors hear the witness's answer? Yes.
Yeah, this is not an action film.
And again, you didn't see any of this either, did you?
I didn't know.
Right. But it certainly shows that night, doesn't it?
Yes.
Where's your bedroom relative to this location?
Mine is upstairs, and you have a window up on the top that points out that way, kind of.
Okay. Okay, so you're actually looking out a window too.
At this time, no, I was in.
You're in bed.
Yes.
Tell me when you're starting to look out the window.
When my mom came in, and she said that.
Okay.
She was going for a conversation.
Is this about where you get to see it?
No, they were already talking.
They were already talking.
Yes.
Can you agree with me that Jason's truck is not obstructing anything on your property?
At the moment, yes.
And again, just to keep it up to speed, you still didn't see this part either, right? Good.
I can zoom in a tiny bit, but it's not much better. Is this better? It's a tiny bit behind too. It's like a second or two behind. He appears to be building a snow wall right at the boundary line.
Okay, now were you situated a little bit more to the right at this point? Okay, you saw your dad here. Okay, can we stop it right there for a second? Thank you. Jason's truck, you can hardly even see, right?
You can hardly even see from the corner that it's at. I was at the other corner.
I get it, but it would have been entirely away from your property.
What do you mean?
It wasn't near your driveway, that.
You backed up, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was
So, yeah.
quite a bit of,
It wasn't in our property now.
No, it wasn't. And you'd agree with me that throughout the entire playing of this video that we've all been watching, that truck wasn't obstructing your driveway at all.
You can tell that the snow was being pushed at the end of our driveway.
It was pushed at the telephone pole, correct?
A little past the telephone.
Well, I mean, the jury sees it. Where's the telephone pole?
It's right there.
Right. It's on the other side of your driveway.
Yes. But it's still our driveway because there's 2 lanes of our driveway.
The jury was out looking at it today.
We have 2 different backing spaces. We have a car with 4 cars parked and we have a car with 3 cars parked. We have 2 different.
Okay. We got it. You understand we were out there today, right?
I do.
Okay, good. Okay, so we can't see Jason's truck at this point. We see your father approaching the truck, right?
Yes.
You don't see Jason approaching your father at all, correct? Okay, if you could continue playing.
So he approaches.
Yes, very good.
Okay.
I don't know, it's all the way up there.
Can we stop it right there?
You better not do anything stupid.
Thank you. You better not do anything stupid. Now, who said that? Your mom. Can you see? I know it's tough to see, but can you see that little bit in the corner where your father would have approached Jason?
I can right now, yes.
And it's your father going to him, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it's your father going right up to him, right?
Yes, I have a conversation when he said it.
A conversation. Okay. Do you know if he threatened him? Did you hear anything? So you don't know what was actually said?
I didn't.
All right, we can continue playing. Thank you. Okay, can we
Oh, I better not do it.
You don't know what's going on there, do you?
I don't exactly, because I'm not outside.
Right. You don't know if there was an exchange or if there was just a one-way conversation, right? And certainly you don't know if your father would have been saying to Jason that. That is correct. Okay. All right, we can continue.
No, he's getting dropped. He hasn't gone out of the cat. Ah! He's in
That's fine. I don't want to put you through that again, okay? Okay, why don't you grab a seat?
Yeah, you did. You did. Just because you stopped like 30 milliseconds before the other 5 shots, you did put her through it. It's my editing program. This is the full version. I have an editing program so I can zoom in on the camera because they don't. I learned from Canton. Sorry.
Thank you. So you'd agree with me, it was a fairly quick interchange there.
Yes, it was.
And unfortunately, you got to see something that was absolutely horrific.
It was, yes.
The audio
and
is
you
off.
don't know
Can't
what the
fix it right
exchange
now.
was between your father and Jason.
I don't.
So it's difficult for you to actually come to an actual conclusion as to what happened, right?
Of course, yes.
I appreciate you coming up there. Eh?
Of course.
You're brave.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just briefly. You had mentioned that there was a plan for, sounds like a friend's father to come plow.
Yes.
Do you know what happened to that plan?
We had it planned since like 5 in the afternoon, and he had work until like very late, and he planned on coming around 10 when we needed him to plow, and he got there 10 minutes later, and he called us to tell us he was here, and my mom was like, you need to leave, like something just went on.
And so he was supposed to come at about 5 o'clock, is what you just said,
Yes.
and he hadn't come.
Yes.
Do you know the communications between your mom and your dad concerning?
I don't. I just know during that time we didn't know if he was going to end up coming, so we knew that we were going to have to probably hand shovel it.
Okay.
So it was
That was going to be my question. If he didn't show up and he didn't show up at 5, how was that driveway going to be clear?
Yeah, we had work the next morning at 11, so we needed to clear it by that night or the next morning. So it was just more of, there's more snow in our driveway.
I understand that your living situation had you there some days and not there other days.
Yes,
I'm not sure whether you know anything about the first snowstorm of the season and any issues between Jason and your dad.
I do not.
Okay. And so Attorney Sisti asked you some questions about, what you observed with the plow going up to the pile, kind of up to maybe beyond the pole.
Yes, of course.
Do you know whether or not Mr. Levesque was actually finished plowing? Had he backpulled, for instance, all the snow out of his driveway?
No, it looked like he was still plowing because in the end of the video when my dad went to go out, he was backing up to plow again.
And it doesn't sound like, given the circumstances, you went over and made any observations of Mr. Levesque's driveway.
I did not.
And how far advanced he was in finishing this task.
Of course.
Have any idea where the snow is ultimately going to end up?
You're right.
Look, the Attorney Sisti asked you some questions about, what happened out there between your dad and Mr. Levesque. And it sounds like you're straight up front, you couldn't hear that conversation.
I could not,
But you saw your dad putting on his, you said, you confirm with Attorney Sisti that the moment you kind of start making observations as he's putting on his hoodie.
Yes.
You see him with any weapons?
He does not know.
Did you see him with, a screwdriver or anything on his person?
He didn't even have his phone on him.
Did you see him during the times that you observed him walking away, walking back towards Mr. Levesque, brandishing anything in his hands? That was
not at all, no.
Thank you. Those are the questions.
Just a couple. Actually, you don't know what was on your father, right?
I do not.
And certainly, from what we saw, and we just saw it briefly from a tough angle, it didn't appear as though Jason would be able to see what was on your father either.
Objection, speculation.
If you can answer it from what you saw on the video.
What are you asking?
You can't tell whether or not Jason saw what was inside your father's pockets, for instance.
I feel like you can, yes. If you're throwing over a hoodie and there's nothing in the pockets, nothing fell out, so. And he doesn't have pockets in his sweatpants, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I'm going to try to clarify. Did it appear to you as though Jason was watching your father put a hoodie on?
I do not know.
Right. So the whole hoodie thing really doesn't mean anything.
I believe it does, yes.
If he saw him putting on a hoodie, maybe that would mean something?
I have no clue if he didn't or did see. He was in his truck.
Okay. So you don't even know if Jason was observing your father when he came out toward him, correct?
No, he was in his truck.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, yeah. Thank you, Your Honor. Angela Violet.
Now Mom comes in. I use the cursive counter. It used to say F-bomb counter, but now we're just going to count the cursive words, right? Swear words. Sidebar. This is sidebar number 5. It's the cursey words, yeah. Yes, cursive is writing. It's because writing is words, and cursive words. It's a play on words. We've used cursive counter many times for counting swear words. I heard 11 cursives in one statement. The lawyer with the ponytail is trying to pull off Judge Middleton's look, and it's not working. He's got less to work with, but it's just not.
Ladies and gentlemen, as sometimes happens, we're going to stop a little early today.
Look at that.
Just scheduling reasons, it just makes sense for us given the late hour. Rather than start another witness at this point, we're just going to suspend for the rest of the day. We'll start up again tomorrow morning. No worries though. We are told by the parties that we are well on track to finish this case on time. So we're going to stop today. I will tell you, I do try my best not to waste your time ever. So I do always try to start when I say we're going to start and take breaks when I say we're going to, and we're going to try to do that for the rest of this trial. So I'd like you back here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, correct?
That's correct, John.
10 o'clock start time, late start.
Tomorrow morning, you can be here a few minutes early, not too much early, but 10 o'clock or 10 before that would be best. And that way we can try to get started right at 10 o'clock. If by chance we can't start at 10 o'clock, as sometimes happens, that's not the fault of the parties, that's the fault of the court, because sometimes things come up unexpectedly because I have to do on other cases. But we'll do our best to start right at 10. All right? All of my prior instructions to you remain in place. The most important one, do not talk amongst yourselves or with anyone else about this trial, about the facts of this case. Don't do any independent research. So no internet research. Don't go back to the scene of this location. Those are the main things. And otherwise, have a good night. Thank you.
Please rise.
All right, well.
Don't look at the media. That was the third thing I was going to tell you. Obviously, don't review any media accounts about this.
Stay off the internet.
Okay, have a good night.
We're going to give them a minute. They might do a couple more things here before we finish. The court does run from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're about 20 minutes early for their break. I don't know why New Hampshire only works half days, but that's what they have on their calendar. So.
We're all set. We'll see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And nothing to do in court, so defendant is walking out. Must be a free man. Out on bond, I guess. Or those are the bailiffs, one of the two. So all caught up, yes. That means tomorrow, early in the morning, we get to have the crazy case, the 2-for-1 trial in the morning, and hopefully maybe even get a verdict on that one, because that broke early. We're going to have jury instructions, closing arguments tomorrow morning, then come over here, pick up that case, and we'll watch for a verdict in the 2-for-1 trial, which shouldn't be too long. I'm guessing during lunchtime it would be happening. So crazy. Do they still live next door to each other? That would be crazy if they do. Stacy Allen, great day of court. Thank you, Stacy. Thanks for being here. I appreciate that. Jordan is the pro se. Yes, the 2-for-1. What else do you call that one? 2-for-1? Ohio Knights. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna call it right here. This might not be the right thing to do, but what would have fixed this issue in the situation in this case that we're following in New Hampshire. What would have fixed it for everybody is if Jason would have knocked on the door of the other neighbor and said, "Hey, got my truck out here. Do you guys mind if I plow your driveway real quick? No charge. I'll just clear yours out and then I'll push all the snow down the road. Is that cool?" That would have fixed it. It would have been over. And better yet, it would have been like, "Hey, yeah, that's kind of you do that. We're about to pay somebody else to come and do it." That's all it takes. And it takes like the amount of gas you'd use in a truck to do that. We're talking a cup of gas, okay? So $1 worth of gas in the truck. The wear and tear on the vehicle, negligible. Do him a favor instead of being like, I'm gonna push the snow right to the very edge of where I can go. And yes, Purple. I've heard he had priors and he shouldn't have had a pew-pew. I've heard also North Carolina is a constitutional carry, but usually that means that if you're not prohibited, then you can carry. He may have been prohibited. We haven't heard about the priors in this particular court as of yet. Previous winter, neighbor blocked driveway with snow pile. Yeah. Can we go back? Can we go back to the street view? Yeah, we can bring that back. Hang on 1 second. Now that we've had a good look, let's go here. Here's the street view. Looking at, let's see. There's 41, and here's 43. The way the numbering system works in most towns, you've got odd numbers on one side of the road and even numbers on the other, and oftentimes it correlates to being north and south and east and west. Is how it works. But the truck was pushing snow along here right up to this boundary where the pole is. So if we look sort of down the pole level, it came just by this and came in this area. Now, they say it was pushing right up to the pole and then stopping. She said it pushed over into the driveway because we have 2 lanes of driveway and the snow was over here. I think the daughter might have been a little exaggerating a little bit how far the snow. To me, it didn't look like it went that far. But everything happened right out here in front. The approach, the truck, which was parked right here, the interaction happened. He was heading back. He fell on the ground, like right over here, right in this area, just right by the pole. And then the 5 extra shots were just overkill in a big way. Huge overkill. But he didn't die, which is amazing, first of all. Anyone who can get shot and not die, thank you. Do that. So we now have attempted murder as charges instead of murder charges. How exactly was the driveway blocked? In this one, it's hard to see. Okay, so it's possible that the property line, man, I'd put it right in the middle of this probably. The property line's probably right down the middle of this. I doubt it's going to be right on the building line, although some of the old places did do that. Could also be this little boundary right there is the boundary line. Because back in the day, you could construct right up to the edge and call it good. But I think last time you pushed the snow over here and the plow pushing the snow off the road blocks off the driveway. That's the problem. But he's maimed for life, seriously injured, yeah. That would be called generally, if you just record and repost, that would be a copyright infringement, and depending on the show, $10,000 offense. There's literally nowhere else to put the snow. Both men knew that. Yeah, it has to end up in somebody's yard, right? If you want to push it out of the driveway, where is it going to go to? You're not allowed to push it out into the street, because then it blocks everyone else's traffic. Rule is your snow needs to stay on your property, not on your street. That would strike me for sure. Cat's pajamas, but they might show some of the video in court. It's for those that live in an area that gets a lot of snow, it's a terrible thing, right? Snow is a pain in the butt to deal with. You might spend all morning shoveling your driveway and clearing it off, and the road has not been plowed yet, and then along comes the plow, and they push all the snow from in front of your house, and it comes in a big wave and just blocks off your driveway, like a 2 feet drift, and you have to reshovel it. It's super heavy. It happens. They're allowed to push snow into your driveway. You're not allowed to push it into the road. Whose house is whose? On the witness we just heard from, she says they lived in this house. Grandma lived out front, in this little, what was like a converted shop, and they lived upstairs and in back. And then the defendant lived in this one right here, and he was pushing the snow from the right side of the screen off towards the left, and then stopping about here. The first witness was watching from this window, right up here. Cameras in this corner. She was watching from over here, and then was able to observe Dad walking back from the altercation and see that he had a gun and shoot and screamed and everything else. That'll happen that way. All right. Anything else? Any other questions? Oh, hang on. What is this? Jury view? Is this the jury view? There's the jury van. Jury van gets the jury view. That's pretty wild. This was earlier today. That's current weather. So that's nifty. By the way, did you see that was a Sprinter van? I want one of those. Like, some people have a life goal. It's like, when I grow up, I want to own an island or something like that. Nope. When I grow up, I want to own a Sprinter van. Mary Sue, I think the big deal on this property is that in fact this story started a long time before the snowfall. That this was a neighbor feud that began a long time ago, and it continued just being bad. More jury view from today. Obviously, we can't see the jury. Not supposed to film the jury. But that's how the house looks today, as the bailiffs are out sort of securing the scene. Ooh, is that a Charger? Cops are securing the scene. And they gone. Here is the other house. This is from 41 looking towards 43. The sign on the porch is gone, probably because I think they've moved. But the sign used to say, "What happens on the porch stays on the porch." That was on the wall there. It was a prior storefront, now converted to residential. Somebody needs to fix the flag. It's all wrapped around the pole. And now looking down the driveway of 43, well, we try not to show any jurors. It's a nice house. It's clearly been remodeled more recently than it was first constructed. Tony, thank you. Glad you could join us today. Love it. This is there is snow. You can see there's snow there. Look at that big pile of snow. There is some snow pushed up there, and that is current. That's like today from the jury view this morning. That's what the road looks like, and that's what the car looks like, and this is what happens when you leave your camera turned on and forget about it. Walk across the street, jaywalking. This is evidence of a crime right here. There's some snow. And now looking back from the truck back to the driveway of 43. I may or may not have accidentally done that when I was recording a wedding video sometime. I've started recording. I hit the button to record, but I must have already hit the button once before I bumped it. So I stopped recording. Every time I thought I was recording, I was not. And so I had quite a few shots of me carrying around the camera at about waist level, pointed at the ground and people's feet. Missed all the good stuff. So it happens. It happens even to the pros. This is looking back. This is from the driveway of number 43. Looking from number 43, looking towards number 41 at where the truck would have been, where the snowplow would have been. So like the last small gap that her dad covered before the confrontation. Are you noticing something? Are you noticing there's only one pole? There seems to be only one pole. Yet if we go to Google Street View, there are clearly two poles right there. But there's one pole right here. So something's changed. More B-roll. It's a glitch in the matrix. It's 6 volts. That pretty much explains it. I something about poles. I noticed them. I don't know. They put in a new pole, took the old pole out. Makes sense. They've had to move a lot of wires. That old pole had a lot of utilities on it. Summer Street and Allen Street, that's the intersection. Looks like and now we're back to the jury van pulling in. The Sprinter van making its arrival. Thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right. Don't they put up a second pole next to the first, then swap the wires when placing a pole? Yes, but normally they don't leave it. I mean, for me, they did it in one day. Here, let's see. I'd have to go to Google Earth to backdate it, but you've got at the top of the larger pole, these are power lines, right? That's why they're way at the very top. They're spaced out quite a bit. Down further, you've got some communication stuff. Also power, splitting off this way. These are power lines. But down here, this is like cable. This is television. You probably got some fiber in there. That looks like some sort of router. Somebody connected a cable router right there. Might be a pirate Wi-Fi station. They do have two poles everywhere. Looking at the dirt, it doesn't look fresh. Well, maybe. That might be a fresh dig right here on the one pole. All right. There we go. No more talk of poles. All right. All of our lines are underground. I wish. Oh, my goodness. I wish. You can't fly a kite in my town. There's just too many wires overhead. Maybe the picks are overlapped incorrectly, duplicating the pole. I looked at that, but they're different heights, and they have different wires on them. Got a little Politica. Yeah. That's funny. Midlife Mania. This looks like my kind of video work. Lots of the ground. I've done it, too. It happens to the best of us. Pole dancing music is running right now. This is it. There's a different pole this morning. Okay, we'll just leave that one right here. All right. It's been a day. It's been a day. We started early. I know we're ending early, but we started early, so it's all good. We spent a full day here. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Probably first thing in the morning, we're going to go back to the 2-for-1 trial just to see if we can get a verdict or at least closing arguments in that one. That'll be interesting. And then at 10 o'clock, we're going to jump back to this snowplow. The plow shooting. The snowplow shooter. I don't know. We'll call it. We'll figure out what we're going to call it. Are we done? We are done for today. Jason, you're absolutely correct. It's a monumentous task to get everyone to show up on the same day to move utilities. It rarely happens, so thank you. We're on New Hampshire time, 4 p.m. ending. Yes, it's going to be early out tomorrow as well, which is great because we have the podcast tomorrow. Please join us for that. Hopefully WeatherWatch has its voice back completely. It's been a little under the weather for about a week or so. So we'll see. Podcast is tomorrow night. It's Wednesday today, Barb. Podcast tomorrow. Tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better. Shovel their driveway for Pete's sake. Please stay safe until we go live again tomorrow morning. Bright and early, about 8 o'clock in the morning. You guys have a good one. We'll see you in the morning. Bye-bye.
Because he's the guy.